Looks like we've got everyone here. So I'm calling the May 10th, 2022 Board of Zoning Adjustment meeting to order. Let's first start with explanation of how this works. Anna, can you help me out on how the audience is promoted?
Yes, of course. So first, I'm going to briefly describe the procedures of this meeting. Once cases are called, city staff will be giving their staff report, and the chair is going to turn it over to the applicant team associated with the case. And then it's time for public testimony. When that public testimony occurs, for everyone online, you're going to be promoted as a panelist. So right now there's two main categories of people who are participating in this meeting. We have attendees and panelists. All members of the public are currently attendees. Panelists are members of the board and city staff. So if you are an applicant or a citizen interested in the case, like I mentioned, when it's time for you to, when the chair calls for your case, you're going to use the raise hand function in Zoom. It should be a ribbon at the bottom of your screen. You'll click that button and that will notify city staff that we want to promote you as a panelist. When you get promoted as a panelist, it'll seem like for a brief moment that you've been disconnected from the meeting. Don't worry at all. It's just Zoom's connection to bring you in as a panelist. And it might also ask you to accept the promotion as well. Once you've been promoted and connected, then you can turn on your camera, turn on your microphone to give public testimony. But please stay muted when you are not actually giving testimony. And we would also appreciate it if you change your username in Zoom to your legal name. That also helps with the promotion process. And just as a reminder, we want the chat box to be exclusively for questions about the agenda or any logistics about Zoom. Merits of each case cannot be discussed in the chat box. And that's all, Mark. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna. So let's first swear in the staff. So will all city staff members turn on their cameras and microphones and take the oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but truth at today's meeting?
I do.
Each person, please identify yourself to the court reporter. Go ahead. Anna, first.
Anna Naniski.
Najma Muhammad.
We got everybody? Okay.
Andrew Clark as well. He's working on his microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Andrew Clark. I'm here.
All right. I think we've got everyone at this point.
And sorry,
Go ahead.
Mr.
Sorry.
Duddy, Jim. And KJ, we have two.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Duddy.
Good morning.
Good morning. So do we have everyone, I think?
KJ?
Do you want?
Her mic isn't working. One second. Christina Johnson, she's also with the development inspection staff.
Christina, you're muted.
So the question is, do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth at today's meeting, and then identify yourselves, which we have most everyone, I think, at this point.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, my name's Christina Johnson. I'm the city inspector, and I do swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Did we have everyone?
That's everyone.
Okay, thank you. Board members, we have a few docket items that we're continuing to the June 14. Looks like there's about 7 or 8 of them here. So I'll go through each one. Docket item number 7, and I've got to get to that page. That is case number 00030 with an address of 6801 Holmes. This item is suggested to be moved to the June 14th docket. Do we, any reason for that, Anna? Just,
They need more time to work on their case.
and with fee or without fee today?
Without today.
Okay. Board members, can I get a motion on case number 30 to move to June 14?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Randy, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Opposed? Hearing none, this case is moved to June 14. 1 second here. The next case is docket number 9. That is case number 00135 with an address of 4516 Holly Street. Same thing, Anna, we need to move to June 14 for more time for the applicant.
It does need to be continued to June 14th, but they did not pick up their sign for posting, for property posting.
Okay, and no
That's the
fee
reason
on
for
that
the delay.
one?
No
as
fee
well?
at this time.
Okay, thank you. Board members? Motion?
So moved.
Thank you. And second? Yeah, second, thank you. And all those in favor, please say aye.
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 And opposed? Motion passes. Move to June 14. The next item is item number 10 with an address of 5204 Spring Street. It's been suggested we move this one to June 14 with no fee. All right.
What was the case number on that, Mr. Chair?
That was the one before it was case number 135, docket 9. This one is docket 40, docket number 10, number 40.
Number 10 and 40.
Yep. Okay. I think I heard a motion in this. I think I heard Tony motion it and Randy second, I believe. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Well, 1 second, Tom. We didn't make a motion on that one yet. I don't think you'd asked the staff what to deal with.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Anna, any
The
reason?
property owner failed to pick up the sign for property posting.
And no fee on that one, I assume?
No
Yes,
fee
sir.
at this time.
All right. So, Mr. Benuki, you want to put your motion back up there again, sir?
Yeah, so moved. Sorry, that was my
Sure.
mistake.
And
Second.
thank you, Randy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion passes. Move to June 14th. The next case is docket number 13 with an address of 5025 Lydia Avenue. This is also wanting to be moved to the June 14th docket. Anna, staff reasons?
No sign was picked up for property posting.
Okay. And no fee again?
No fee at this time.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll take a motion on this one.
So moved.
Thank you, Randy. And second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Tom. And all those in favor, please say aye.
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 And opposed? Hearing none, this case is continued to the June 14 docket. And we've got a few more here. We're going to case number 21. And that is case number 56 with an address of 8308 East 47th Terrace. It's been suggested that we move this one to June 14. Anna?
That is correct. They also failed to pick up their sign for property posting.
Okay. Board members, I'll entertain a motion on this one.
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. And second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Benuki. All those in favor of moving this to June 14, please say aye with no fee.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This case is continued to June 14. The next one is right below it, case number 22 with an address of 38 38 Broadway Boulevard. Also getting moved to June 14th. Anna, any reason for that one?
Failure to post property sign.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen,
Is there something happening with the failure? We have a lot of these, and that's unusual, seems to me.
Yeah, there's no clear reason. All of the correct notifications went out to the applicants to post the property signs. Just for one reason or another, they weren't picked up here at City Hall.
Okay.
so waiting for that motion in second on this one.
Yeah, I move that this case be continued to the June 14th docket.
Thank you, Mr. Banuki. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Mixdorf. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, this case continued to June 14. We just have a few more here with continuances. The next case for continuance is docket number 24 with a address of 8300 North Green Hills Road. Is anyone here speaking on this one today? All right, Anna, reason for this one?
This one, the property owner is going through a special use permit process to make their site to be in compliance. So for there to be no need for the appeals case, we are requesting that this case be moved to July 12th with fee.
All right. And I'm assuming no one's in the audience on this one. Is that correct? No one's raising
No one
their
has
hand.
raised their hand, and I do not believe the attorney associated with the case is going to be attending today.
Okay, great. So I'll take a motion on this case, and remember it's with fee. Go ahead. You board members.
Oh, so moved to move the case to July 12th with fee.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
anybody? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mixdorf. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And opposed? All right, hearing none, that motion passes with fee. The next one is, of the last two here, is docket item number 26 with a address of 118 East 46th Street. Same issue on signage maybe?
Not this one. They need more time to work on their case.
And is staff suggesting fee or no fee on this?
No fee at this time.
Okay, so it's they're wanting to move to June 14. Board members,
So moved.
thank you. A second.
Second.
Thanks, Mr. Grants and Ms. Mixdorf. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Opposed? Hearing none, that case is moved to June 14. And then the last case to be moved today is docket number 28 with a street address at 4343 Oak Street. Anna, on this one.
They need more time to work on their case.
Okay, and is staff suggesting fee or no fee on this?
Without fee at this time.
Thank you. Board members?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Mixdorf. Do I need a second? I need a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, and Mr. Grins. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And opposed? This case is moved now to June 14.
And Mr. Ebbets, there's actually one more continuance that came in a little late.
Sure.
Docket item number 5, case 13 for 3922 Troost Avenue. Continuance
right.
to June 14th. The reason is because they also have requested more time to work on their variance request.
And does staff suggest fee or no fee on this one?
No fee at this time.
Okay. Board members, may I have that motion on docket number 5, case number 13?
So moved to the to the June 14th docket.
Perfect. Second, anybody?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Mixdorf. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And opposed? That case is now moved to the June 14 docket. Okay, And let's start with the ones at the top. I'm
Mark, can
calling.
we,
Oh,
sorry to
sorry.
interrupt, can we take a vote up for the special meeting for
yes.
May 24th before we get
Right.
going?
Sure. And so board members, because we have a hard stop today around noon to 12:15. And because of that, there may be cases that are left over. I'd like to have us all get back together on May 28th at 9 a.m. to
24th.
finish, or excuse me, May 24th, a Tuesday, to finish up on the docket items that we haven't quite finished as yet. Do you have any discussion on that? Is that all okay with everyone?
Okay with me.
Okay. And with city staff, is city staff okay with that new meeting date of May 24th?
That is correct.
Okay, great. All right, so I'll take a vote on that we have a special meeting for May 24th, 2022 at 9 a.m. Can I have a motion to that?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Thank you, Tom. And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The chair votes with it or opposed, excuse me. Chair votes with that motion, and we'll see everyone on May 28th if cases are needed for that day.
24.
May 24th.
I keep saying May 28th. I meant to say May 24th. It's Tuesday. Thank you. All right. If there's no other needs, let's start with the cases. I call case or docket number 1, case number 85 with an address of 2316 Troost Avenue. Can I have all interested parties raise their hands for this one so we can promote you?
I am promoting a Chris Maddox. He is the applicant associated with the case.
Okay.
Stephanie Isaacson, she's the property owner.
All right.
We also have a Mackenzie. Jeffrey Schulster, my apologies.
Okay.
Angie Splitgerber. Courtney. And Ruben.
All right.
Waiting for those last two to be connected in. Reminder, Courtney and Ruben, you need to accept the promotion.
Have we got everybody?
Yes, they have been connected.
All right. So, oops, sorry, I've got to get back up here to this other screen. Yikes.
Ruben, you're sharing your screen.
There we go. So I believe our previous chairman swore each individual person as they gave testimony. And so let's start with Mr. Maddox. And I've got to find him here on the screen. It'll just take a second. So, Mr. Maddox, do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth at today's meeting?
I do.
Okay. Why don't you tell us why we should grant this variance for your case today?
Sure. Mr. Chair, just a quick recap. This case was initially heard by the board at the last meeting. And so we were, I'm sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
Right.
I think first, normally what we would do is
Oh, yes, you're right. You're right. Yeah. Sorry, I just now got that.
swear everyone, including staff, right? Go through the exhibits, admit the exhibits, see if the applicant has any objections to those. I think staff would normally present first, right? And then I think we'd go to the applicant.
Okay, good. So city staff, excuse me just for a moment here while I get to that right page. I'm sorry, not quite there yet.
So I think,
Almost. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Sarah.
I think it's, I mean, I might suggest swearing everybody in at the start might make things go smoothly. That's up to you though. But I think the first thing we want to do is see if the applicant has any objections to the 11 exhibits that are listed at the end of the staff report.
Right.
And for clarification, there were 2 new exhibits admitted at the previous meeting. They are noted on the docket/agenda. So we have Exhibit 12, the applicant's PowerPoint presentation, and Exhibit 13, the opposition's PowerPoint presentation.
And
Okay, so are you saying these, maybe I'm on the.
So the applicant has submitted new materials associated with this case. However, I did not receive them until around noon yesterday. So a new staff report was not generated for this case.
And again, just so everyone's on the same page, the additional items, this case was originally heard. We went back to reevaluate a couple of items related to the Truce Quarter Overlay District, and we had subsequent meetings with the Truce Coalition as requested by this board. And so the additional documents that were provided were a product of those negotiations and discussions that we had with the coalition. They were not available until after those discussions were substantially complete.
Okay, thank you. So let's first admit the exhibits. And if I heard that correct, they're number 1 through 13 for this case. And Mr. Maddox, do you have any opposition to us admitting those exhibits for today's meeting?
No objection.
Thank you. Those exhibits are admitted. And let's go ahead, and everyone who plans to give testimony on this case, Sarah, is that okay to go ahead and let's swear everyone in at this point? Do you agree?
If everyone who plans to testify could turn on their cameras and raise their right hand and take the oath.
Right. So everyone who plans to give testimony, please turn on your cameras, raise your right hand, and be prepared to give this oath. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, but the whole truth today on this case? Say as we'll go across the screen here. So if I miss someone, please let me know. I think there's Jeffrey Schurtzel, excuse me.
Yes.
Angie Splitberger. Say yes or no.
Mic on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think we have Stephanie Isaacson.
Yes.
Thank you. Miss McKenzie.
Yes.
Thank you. And then we have Courtney as well.
Yes.
And last but not least, do we have Ruben? Is there someone else maybe? Ruben?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
That's everyone.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I'd like to clarify with Anna real quick that the 2 exhibits then that were emailed to you, Anna, yesterday, would that be exhibits 14 and 15 in addition to the first 1 through 13 that were admitted?
Yes, they will be once we display and discuss them today.
Okay.
I was just clarifying that
Okay.
they weren't attached ahead of time because
Okay.
I didn't have enough time to do that
Very good.
since they were just received yesterday.
Okay.
All right. So Mr. Maddox, why should we grant your variance request today?
I think the answer to that question is relatively simple, that full compliance with the transparency along Truce Quarter Overlay is impossible on this addition. And we'll get into the multiple reasons as to why that's the case. The primary reason is that 70% transparency is not achievable based on the structural integrity and components of the support columns. There's both diagonal bracing and vertical bracing that's needed to support the roof. And we simply can't put a window where we have a steel beam. And so for that reason alone, we're not anywhere close to the 70% transparency. The applicant has gone back to our design team to try to maximize all of the opportunities for transparency on the Troost portion of this building. And we've come back. We were originally at 23% the last time we were before you. That number has now increased to 30%. And for additional reasons that we'll get into based on testimony today, there's just not any opportunity for us to go above that. So with that, I think I would like to share one of the discussion exhibits that we had with the Troost Corridor overlay.
Mr. Maddox, let me interrupt you just for a second. Again, I'm new at this chair position, so I apologize. I did not ask Anna or who's presenting the case today, Anna, if she would present her case, then we ask for your comments. So
I'm sorry.
Anna, go ahead. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, since we heard it at the last meeting, would you prefer a full presentation or for me to highlight some of the items necessary to the case?
I think highlighting, because the board's familiar with the case from last time. Thank you.
Yeah, understood.
So go ahead when you're ready.
Yep, just trying to share my screen. Okay, is it up? Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
We can see it.
Okay, thank you. So we're focusing on 2316 Troost Avenue. The subject site is located along Troost Avenue in East 24th Street. New Horizons is the company on the subject site. They're highlighted in yellow, and they are expanding the property on to the orange square. This is a photo of the front of the building. Then this is the original request associated with the variances. This has gone through a special use permit process, so it was previously reviewed by the City Planning Commission. Now it's before the Board of Zoning Adjustment. At the last meeting, we discussed several variances that the company would need to develop their project, specifically in related to the Troost Corridor Overlay District. Won't go into all of those notes, but to remind everyone, the variances in question, the first variance is to the architectural material requirements for the Troost Overlay District. Only 20% of the facade can be a secondary material, and they are proposing for a secondary material to act as a primary material. So they were originally proposing a 42% secondary material on the facade frontage, which is 110% increase from the requirement. For transparency, for the facades that face Troost, there is a minimum of 70% requirement on the first floor. They were proposing a 23% transparency on that facade that faces Troost, which is a 67% increase from the requirement. Change from the requirement. Additionally, there is requirements associated with the street side facade for the Troost Overlay District, this being 24th Street. The transparency for that facade has to be a minimum of 40%. They were proposing a 26%, which is a 35% change from the requirement. Additionally, their Troost Corridor Overlay District regulates the amount of transparency windows on the subject site, but as well as the location of where the transparency can be on the building. So the Troost Corridor Overlay District says that it has to be at least 3.5 feet above the sidewalk. They are proposing for it to be a little bit higher at 4.43 feet. That is a variance in the amount of 0.93 feet. And two additional variances that needed to be requested for the outdoor lighting requirements. Outdoor lighting cannot spill over onto residentially zoned properties and right-of-way due to the facade of the building and the building being right up against the property line. Lighting does spill over onto the right-of-way. They're requesting a variance in the amount of 8.7 to 4 foot candles. And then additionally, which was not noted in the staff report, For the existing gravel lot on the subject site, gravel is not permitted in any other districts other than an M district. And there are some paved and some gravel portions of the site. So they are seeking a variance so they can keep those gravel portions of the parking lot as well. And that concludes my update on this particular case. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Okay. So continue on, Mr. Maddox. You're on mute. Mr. Maddox?
Yep, thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
there you go.
Anna has correctly summarized the status of this case as of the last meeting. As a result of last meeting, we decided, based on this board's discussion, to request a continuance to today to give us more time to meet with the Truce Coalition. And so everything that Anna has talked about, again, as the status of the project as it was last month. I'm here today to talk about the additional changes that we've made to this plan. When we met with the Truce Coalition, we discussed a number of things. The issues, though, I think can really be boiled down to just a few items involving transparency and to secondary materials. You may recall that at the last BZA meeting, there was discussion of bringing down our use of secondary materials and then increasing the amount of transparency. And there were some numbers that were discussed. And then we were willing to go meet with the coalition after we had a chance to review our plans. So the first item that I'd like to share with the board today is a copy of the revised elevations that incorporate kind of the discussion document that we took to the Truce Coalition. So on Tuesday, May 3rd, last week, after we had a chance to go back to our design team and really evaluate what was the opportunity along Truce to add additional transparency and reduce building materials, we met with the Truce Coalition. There were 5 members present, and we met for about an hour and a half on that Tuesday night. And what we came to them with was this. So this is the elevation of the building. This is the addition that faces Truce. And we were able to explain a couple of reasons as to why windows can't go in some locations, the changes that we made then to improve the overall transparency and reduce those building materials. So the first thing we mentioned with the coalition is that there is this diagonal bracing that you can see right here where my mouse is that supports the roof structure. On the other side of this support beam, there is a storage closet. There are 2 offices, and then there's a janitor's closet. We know that this board has had other cases on the Truce Corridor overlay. Specifically, there was a case number 2019-00048 for 3801 Truce. That case was decided a couple years ago, and it involved the conversion of a drive-through car wash into an office. So some of these board members may recall that case. In that case, just like we have here, there were uses on the other side of that wall, particularly related to storage, where the board and ultimately, I believe the coalition conceded that the transparency requirement shouldn't apply when we're talking about a storage room. And it's important to note that for this type of user in particular, for this business, the equipment that they use as part of their remediation business is very expensive. It is licensed and registered with the state of Missouri, and it costs tens of thousands of dollars. And so for security reasons, they need to have controlled access. And for security reasons, would prefer not to have a large window displaying this equipment to the general public. And so we looked there and decided that based on, again, the uses on those walls, and then again, the impossibility of putting in a window where you have a large steel beam supporting the roof structure, made this part of the structure not feasible, not practical for adding transparency. When we move along then to the south, we did add 2 additional windows on this part of the structure, and then we changed the secondary material from metal to brick. And by doing that, the resulting transparency on the Truce side of this project improved from 23%, as Anna testified, to 30%. And then the transparency on the south elevation Again, we did a similar type of analysis down there on the south elevation. Here we go. And our transparency here improved slightly from 26% to 28%. And then with respect to secondary materials, originally on the Truce side, we were at 42%. We've now reduced the secondary material to 30%. And on East 24th Street, secondary materials went from 57% to 55%. The Truce Coalition heard our presentation. They talked among themselves, and then we heard back from them. And they indicated that they were willing to allow the transparency and the secondary material variances as requested to apply. And the only area where they still have some disagreement would just be the transparency along Troost. And so we do have some other team members today who are prepared to talk about why we cannot go any further on our additional transparency than along Troost. That issue is the sole issue then that remains between the applicant and the coalition. Again, I think the coalition acknowledges that 70% is just not possible for this project. And so we're trying now just to figure out what is a reasonable number. And again, I would offer that for that BZA case that I mentioned at 3801 Troost, this board approved a transparency that was 34%, well below the 70%. And so our request today is, again, 30%, which I feel is in line and very reasonable compared to the other types of projects that I talked about, not only at my last presentation, but then in addition to this 3801 Troost property. So I'd like to turn it over to Stephanie Isaacson and her team to talk about why we can't do any more transparency along Troost. Stephanie?
Thanks, Chris. And I just want to thank everybody for their time. I know we took up a lot of time last month, and hopefully we can get through this fast this month. But like Chris said, we met with the Truce Coalition in 2 different occasions. I've tried to explain the best that I could to them, that I can to you guys. The biggest difference that I want people to understand in this process is this is not a $20 million apartment complex. This isn't a $15 million hotel. This is $1 million addition that's 4,800 square feet. That is now $1.5 million because of the things we did do to comply with the Troost overlay. So we have an entrance that we do not need on Troost. We have a door there. We have a lobby. That lobby, is about $20,000 that we don't, necessarily have to spend on a lobby that we're not going to use, but it complies with the Troost overlay. So we've done the facades setbacks, the roof parapets, the screening, the canopy, the awning. We've done a lot of things to comply with the Troost overlay that are going to cost additional funds. I can't stress this enough. This isn't a development. There's no one paying rent for this. I'm not selling this. This is literally for my employees and my business. It's not every dollar that we can save affects this building. Otherwise it won't get built. And the employees, we'll have to figure out something different because at some point we get up to 1.7, 1.8 million, and it doesn't make sense to build a 4,800 square foot at over $300 a square foot. At some point it makes no more sense. The other issue too is that I'm super concerned about appraisals at this point. And maybe not an appraisal today, but in an appraisal in 10 years or 15 years, if we go to spend this kind of money on a building that's beautiful as it is. I mean, this is a great design. So adding 100 more feet of glass and spending another, $10,000 and then another $10,000 on blinds, like we just start adding up to where it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So I have Courtney Kunkel, who's our contractor, on, and she can kind of talk about the structural aspects and the costs and things like that, and building as the design. So I'll let her talk.
Okay, so hi, I'm Courtney Kunkel, and I am a passenger in a car, so bear with me with the noise. But as Stephanie said, so I'm a general contractor with Monarch Build, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the the building and its structure, I just want to make sure you all know too, it's a very high quality building. It is a steel structure, not a wood structure, which could be done, which would be a less quality long-term building. And as Chris already mentioned, with the cross bracing and the columns, a lot of that was done. I don't know who has this picture up, but if we could zoom down to the conference area, I think it's really important that you guys understand the function of the space is that it's a training space and a meeting facility. And so having that clear open space is critical to that being a well-functioning space, which is what forces the columns and the cross bracing into the exterior walls, which then is preventing areas to not be able to be transparent in that area. If we were to pull that structure inside, we would create a cantilever, which would create some additional cost, but it would also really make the space ineffective for the use they need. Another thing I wanted to point out about the glass they're putting in is, so I have actually I've been working with Stephanie for many years, and I've replaced glass on her existing building due to damage by just passerbys. And so it's an expensive thing to do. And right now with, just the way the world is and lead times, it's very difficult to get glass in a timely manner. So we've really looked at the glass size to make sure that it's broken down into small enough pieces that if they were to have damage to their glass, it's cost effective and efficient to get replaced quickly. The other thing I'll note is Stephanie's been really cost conscious for right reasons, but in order to accommodate making the outside still look very beautiful, balanced, and fit in with the Truce corridor, she's sacrificed actually quality inside. So we've done things, we went through hours and hours of value engineering to try to save costs and have removed things like countertops going to plastic laminate instead of solid surface, which saves $2,500, which somebody might not think that's a big number, but that's a big deal when you're looking at a project like this. And so I think that's important to also note that it is important to her to have accommodated. That's what she shared with me, but then she's sacrificing in interior spaces to make sure she can afford it overall. And just the other thing I wanted to note was, and this won't be a surprise to anybody because it's affecting not just construction, but all of us in all ways, but cost escalation's out of control. Just yesterday, I had a project that got shelved because over the 4 months we've been pricing it, the increase in cost was just too much for the client to bear. And I would just hate for this project to get shelved because of timing. Even if we can't move forward quickly, with changing nothing, costs will likely go up, and then it will become unaffordable.
All right.
That's what I wanted to share.
Mr. Maddox?
I believe there was a.
Yeah, I got it unmuted. So then the other issue too that we're facing with the Truce Coalition had asked us, well, what's the issue with going from the 3 to 5 feet? That would get you, 95 square foot more transparency. So my employees are very set against this. I know there was talk last meeting about some of you that have windows in your offices and you function just fine. So I have Mackenzie Kepke, who runs our training division, our consultants, the people who this building is actually for. I have her on to kind of talk about why the employees are against this. I think the primary thing that we have to understand is where we're sitting at 24th and Troost. We have Western Mental Health, we have Truman Medical Center, and the health department. Those 3 entities all get walking patients to all 3 of those entities. We've had to deal with that in our business. We've had to deal with a lot of those folks coming to our facility thinking that they're at the right place. And so Mackenzie's going to talk about some of her experience with that and why her team doesn't want that 3 to 5 foot band of the glass.
Thank you. So thanks for allowing me to speak. I've worked here at New Horizons for just about 9 years. And we've been at this location, I've been here since I started my career. And As Stephanie mentioned, I manage a group of consultants that'll be housing, this area, and I also do a lot of our in-house company training. And so we'll be utilizing not only the spaces for offices, but the space for the training. And, we've been involved in this conversation with the building design and have voiced our concerns and our thoughts on, what we're looking for and what we want to see. And this glass, with the amount of glass that's expected, being in a person's office, it really just kind of makes some of us uncomfortable with the people that walk by and the transparency to see right in where we're working on a daily basis. Not only working, at offices, there's a couple offices in that area, but in the training, it's, we do a lot of training for our work, and it's very distracting sometimes to have people walking, back and forth, and you can see them. Not only is it distracting for a trainer, but it's distracting for students in your class to be able to see people. And so having the windows be a little bit higher to where there's not so much sight into these areas, and knowing that, I've had some firsthand experiences from being here for so long, working, whether it was going out to the parking lot or, having people come in, seeing people in the area sometimes it's uncomfortable. And so it would be great to be able to have the windows, but to be able to have them higher to where we don't have people looking in on our daily operations. So thanks for letting me speak today on behalf of my team. Like I said, we've been involved in the conversation the whole time, and we're really excited about this building and really hope that we can come to, some sort of agreement so that we can have our building and we can keep, working on Troost.
Thank you. And Mr. Maddox, will you stop sharing your screen so we can see everyone's faces? Thanks again. Until we need it again.
I need to figure out how to do that.
And that's while he's doing that. So that's we have a couple other people also to testify. So I don't know if you want them to talk now or if you want to ask questions or.
Let's see here. There's Anna's screen. Give me a second. All right. I always like to hear from the supporting side, then let's go to opposition. And for those in support, if you're just reiterating the same things that we've already heard, not necessarily to hear that testimony again, but let's go. Who wants to go up first? Miss Stephanie, do you have someone who wanted to speak?
Yeah, do you want, Ruben, do you want to go first?
Yeah, happy to go first. Thank you for having me. Ruben Alonso, CEO of AltCap. We're a community development financial institution located here in Kansas City. We, over the last, I'd say 10 years, have invested over $40 million on Troost between New Markets tax credit financing for real estate development projects, but also small business loans and microloans to small businesses along that Troost corridor. I've known Stephanie for a while, New Horizons for a while. She's actually been involved in some of the projects that we have financed, but also know her as a entrepreneur, small business owner, and I'm very supportive of what she's doing on Troost. I see her as a first mover, having invested in Troost a long time ago, located her business there, and now wanting to reinvest in that business on the Troost corridor and support economic development and community development of that corridor. Just a couple of things I want to point out. AltCap, when we look at real estate development projects, we try to balance what's practical, but what also is our organizational goal to support impact and outcomes in the communities that we're helping to invest in. So what I know about this case, there's obviously a practical side of this, a feasibility side of this, but also cost impact to this business. And what we try to do at AltCap is balance all of those while also trying to make sure that the impacts that we're seeking by supporting businesses can come to fruition. So just here to support Stephanie, New Horizons and what they're doing. This is a project that we would certainly like to see, and a business that we'd like to see stay on Troost, and also believe that the variance that they're asking is very reasonable with the investment that this business is making on the Truce corridor.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Alonso.
Thank you.
Ms. Stephanie, anyone else?
The last person we have is Mark Moberly, who's a neighbor and a business owner along Troost.
Thank you,
And
Mr. Moberly.
Mr. Ebbets, Mark needs to be sworn in.
Mr. Moberly, at today's meeting, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mark Moberly, 2235 Tracy Avenue, Kansas City, Missouri. I'm a homeowner in the Mount Prospect neighborhood, which is directly across 71. I am the HOA president, although I do not represent the views of the HOA, so I just want to make that clear. I am representing myself as a homeowner, but I'm also a partner in the La Quinta Hotel directly to the east of New Horizons. And from both those perspectives, we support this variance request. We feel like Stephanie and her team have made strides to get to some level of compliance, although looking at the cost constraints, I know that's been said, I jumped on late, my apologies. At the La Quinta, we look directly across from it, and I'm telling you, we have no concerns about what is being proposed by the business owner. At the La Quinta, we were required to put a lot of glass to meet the requirement and do so with retail. 3 years later, that retail sits vacant. There's just not enough foot traffic at this area of Troost right before you cross the bridge to justify this requirement. I certainly understand the need for this requirement farther south on Troost, where we have seen a lot of foot traffic, where I frequent the coffee shops and the places like the Combine and Ruby Jeans. This is a different area of Troost, and I don't feel like the requirement is as important here as it is to the south of Troost. And so I would be supportive, both from a business owner and a homeowner's perspective, of Stephanie's request.
Thank you, Mr. Moberly.
Thank you.
And Chris,
Anyone
I
else?
think that's everybody we have, right?
Okay,
Chris?
thank you. So I'd like to hear from the opposition on this case. Who do we have representing them today? Will you please kind of, I can't see your hands. I'm new at this.
Angie, go ahead.
Yeah. Ms. Splitberger?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Angie Splitgerber. I am a member and representative of the Truce Coalition for purposes of today. I know this case was heard last month, and I talked a bit about the import of the overlay. So I'm not going to belabor that, but I do want to say that, again, this was a 3-year process by all of the neighborhoods to come up with an overlay that would offer not only clear guidance as to uses along Troost, but also design guidelines. And we tried to build a lot of flexibility into these guidelines because we recognized that we did not want the corridor to look all the same. So we used materials to do that. We wanted to allow for creativity and flexibility, but yet ensure 100-year construction, because we want these buildings to be there forever. And not only does that then benefit the owners of those properties, but it benefits the quality and values, the property values along the entire corridor. And it contributes to a sense of place, and also, promotes a diversity of uses. So I want to just start with what we're not talking about. You'll probably remember from the last meeting, there were a lot of variances that we didn't challenge. And we are trying to be very thoughtful about what we wanted to talk about. And so with that, the two issues that we really raised were the Troost side materials and transparency violations. And because they were so substantial, and because they do not reflect the intent behind the overlay. And as Mr. Maddox mentioned, we had very good discussion. I've had 4 essentially phone calls and meetings with him. Other coalition members have been present for some or all of those. And we have reached an agreement on that secondary materials, and we're willing to, it's 20% is allowed. They wanted 40%. We met in the middle at 30%. And I think that we're all at least sufficiently satisfied with that compromise. And I'm pleased that we were able to get there. But the issue that we have is the transparency. And I want to be clear, we have never once asked for full transparency to meet with the full transparency requirement, which is 70%. We have not once asked for that. We'd really like to see something closer to 50%. And I think that there are some design modifications that are completely feasible and not impossible that would allow for that. So I do want to talk with you about that. So the reason we're so keyed on the transparency is because it creates a sense of place. It creates a sense of community. And actually that interaction, the ability for people to look out and see people on the street, and people on the street to look in and see people working and active and vibrant on Troost, is what creates that. It also does create a sense of safety. If you're walking down the street and you can't see windows, you assume no one's watching, and you might do something that you shouldn't. Whereas if you know people are watching, you're not going to do those things. And so I think the irony here is we're sort of stuck in a loop where there's, some sort of concern that that having windows is going to actually make the conditions unsafe, when really, I'm sure most of you on the committee know, it actually does the opposite. It promotes safety and health and welfare for the area. So when we had our discussions with the owner, they explained the structural circumstances to us. And, we fully acknowledge that. We're not asking for a complete building redesign. We know that would be unreasonable. We know that would not be feasible. But I do want to point out the owner did reveal to us during those meetings that this design was done last summer under her instructions not to apply the overlay. So this is a hardship that is being created by her decision. And she said that she mistakenly thought she was grandfathered in. But they started with a design that was not compliant, and I think have had to try to retrofit it as simply and cheaply and easily as they could. And that's a problem. I don't know where that came from, but at the end of the day, it's really not anything other than something that they've created in terms of a circumstance. So the first thing that we discussed when we met was simply making the windows larger that exist. And this would include the two that they've added. So the windows currently extend from 5 foot to 10 foot. Why can't they extend from 3 foot to 10 foot? And that was the first thing that we discussed. That was something we indicated was our number one preference. And we told them that even if that doesn't sort of get them to a certain percentage number, if that change was made, we would be fine and agree with that variance. We would feel like that is the minimum variance necessary to reach the goals. It would be substantially under 70%. And, I don't think we were confident that it would be close to 50. It may have been, it probably would have been below that. The second preference was we suggested, well, what about false windows from 3 to 5 feet, and then the real windows from 5 feet up? Certainly not our preference. We don't really like them, but it would create the image of the transparency and accomplish some uniformity along Troost and create the impression that there were windows there. We also discussed even extending, windows upward, false windows upward. We even, I threw out, well, what if we did a small variance on the setback so you could plant some bushes in front of the building? And it's my understanding maybe with the slope of the site that is not feasible. But I think we had a very fulsome discussion of various options. But unfortunately, what we ran into was just simply a refusal for two reasons. Number one, this, kind of inexplicable concern of the employees that they're going to be seen and people are going to knock on the windows, and then the cost issue. So I want to talk about those with regard to, the actual variance standards, right? So, the standards for the variance are you have to have an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty that is not generally applicable to other properties in the same zoning district. It has to be consistent with the purpose and intent of the code and result in substantial justice, considering the public benefit versus the hardship or practical difficulty. And of course, the considerations include whether or not the undue difficult or the undue hardship or practical difficulty is the result of the actions of the owner, whether it results in special privileges not given to others, and whether it is the minimum variance necessary to provide relief. So let's just talk about that for a minute. Okay, number one, I've already pointed out, this isn't an impossible task. It is a design issue that was created when the design was created, not in compliance with the overlay. Certainly there was misunderstanding perhaps as to that, but as you know, as late as December or as early as December, they would have been aware that that wasn't the case. And so I really don't know what happened next, but here's the design that we're left with. So, you know, I want to be clear that a couple things. So there were a couple comparisons drawn to 3801 Troost. That was a highly contentious case. And we did not concede that storage shouldn't have windows. But the owner finally made a reasonable compromise, which was sort of put windows in the holes where you can put windows. And so again, we didn't want her, you know, having to knock down structural things to do things. We're much in the same situation here. And so we're not asking her to expand, you know, a window into a storage space or expand a window or move around structural elements. You know, what we're saying is that the minimum variance that should be awarded here is the one that takes those windows from 3 feet to 10 feet. And I do want to correct what I think is a misnomer of one of the witnesses who made a comment that, you know, there's not enough foot traffic to support retail, and they put a lot of windows in the hotel for retail. We're not talking about retail here, and we know that. We're not asking for 70% transparency and never have. But certainly making these windows a little bit bigger is feasible, and it's something that would be appropriate for an office space and doesn't hold them to a retail standard. So let's talk about the foot traffic issue. I think it's funny that La Quinta across the street says there's not enough foot traffic, and New Horizons says, oh, there's too much, we're in danger. It's just not practical. It's not practical difficulty or a substantial hardship to have people walking down the street. That's what we want. That's normal. There's no risk or danger here that that blinds or curtains can't take care of. And I know you guys asked some great questions about that last month. I even contacted the police department and I asked them, you know, can you tell me for the last year how many reports have, you know, come out of, or how many calls for service have come out of this property? Like, I wanted to know, is there a huge problem with, you know, like employees calling in harassments or assaults or things like that? The response that I received was that there have been 3 calls and 3 reports taken at that location since May 1st of last year, of 2021. And all were made at the actual police station. So that they may have called out, probably no one showed up. They went to the station to do the report. They were all for stealing. So there was no assault or vandalism or property damage complaints in the last year. So I really just don't, and there's no windows currently on Troost. So we don't know what's gonna happen. The windows that are on the north side of the building are around the corner. They're where people feel hidden. When people feel hidden, they do things they shouldn't do. On the street, that's a whole different story. So the other thing I want to just address is the cost. You're gonna, I'm sure you hear day in and day out, like everything is too expensive, right? That is not a situation that is unique to this property. And they actually told me they had not bothered to price out the cost of making the windows a little bit larger. And this was as of my conversation with Ms. Isaacson last Thursday, because it was a no-go for them because of the whole, you know, window knocking being seen by the people on the street situation. So at the end of the day, all we're asking is that this property, in terms of transparency only, be asked to meet a minimum that is actually feasible, is not unique to this property, and allows for us to fulfill the goals of the overlay, and just make those windows a little bit bigger. Let's increase the transparency a little bit. 30% is not sufficient. And you probably all remember last time, I think I showed you the design that we came up with Alpha Electric, which is the only new build addition to a building that we have done with the overlay. And they were at 67%. And that was a variance that we very easily supported. This is a little bit different, but I don't think we're being unreasonable in asking them to make a little more effort here to comply. And I don't think the cost is a significant difference when you're talking about windows versus then exterior wall plus interior finish. It's my understanding that that cost shakes out fairly similarly. And then also it's not unique to this property. And at the end of the day, the way this building was designed in the first instance is because it was designed purposefully not to comply with the overlay. And that's a difficulty that was created on the part of the owner. So with that, I would just ask that you, at this point, reject the variance for the transparency. It does not meet the standards of the overlay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Splitter-Gerber. Anyone else?
I mean, can I have a chance to say something? I'm kind of horrified at that, actually. Like, I think a lot of things were misconstrued here. So
Miss Isaacson, hold on just for a second. I'd like for you to make a small list, and then after we've heard from the opposition, then you can answer all the opposition. No one interrupted you when you were giving your presentation or your compatriots. So that's why I'd like to proceed on today. So make a few notes. We're going to come back to you. We won't forget about you, but let's hear from the opposition first. And those people who are in opposition, let's make it new testimony. There's no need to rehash what Ms. Splitter-Gerber has most eloquently come across with. Who's next?
There is now an Amy Kraus raising their hand in the attendees list. So Amy, I am promoting you. Mark, you will need to swear her in.
Thank you, Anna. I don't see her yet.
She has been connected.
Okay. And I'm still looking for her. Sorry. Is her microphone on?
Yes.
Oh, there you are. Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Kraus, I'm going to swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth at today's meeting?
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead with your new testimony.
All right, thank you. I actually want to just refer back to 3801 Truce, the case that was decided in July of 2019. So it has been several years, simply to state that my recollection, without notes in front of me at this point, the original transparency was in about 18%, and it was increased to 56%, which was more within a line of what we were requesting and also with the constraints of the building structure itself. And that is all that I want to say, simply that being able to increase the transparency is doable here.
Thank you, Ms. Kraus. Anyone else? Anybody?
No one else is raising their hand, and I believe we have heard from everyone who was admitted at the beginning of this case.
Thank you. So let's give Ms. Isaacson a chance to respond to the comments, and then we'll give Ms. Splitter-Gerber a chance. But before Ms. Isaacson speaks, I'm sorry, I got tongue-tied. And was there concessions made from the last meeting to this meeting? What have you done to answer some of our? Yes.
We increased the transparency 10% and reduced the secondary materials by 12%. And we did have costs associated with this. We have sent costs since then to be shared. And I understand I understand that cost is not your guys' problem, but it's my problem. And this building wasn't designed to be against the Troost overlay, so I'm not sure where that comes from. It was designed to be affordable. And that is the number one thing we have to look at, is the affordability. And I cannot go spend $10,000 to put fake windows in. And Angie has those numbers. She was given those numbers. So to say that she doesn't, she does have those numbers. So this is about employees, and employees that do not want people from 3 to 5. What McKinsey, we have tried very graciously not to bring up the bad stuff that happens here. You know, McKinsey's been confronted by a person that was bloody from head to toe looking for Truman Hospital, who came into our building. That's why we have a fence now, is because of people. I'm sorry that we've only made reports 3 times in the last year. To me, that's a lot. We have had 18 catalytic converters stolen in the last 3 years. Do I go make a police report every time someone takes a catalytic converter? No, there's no reason to. There's literally, it's part of doing business here. My other office has them stolen too. We just deal with it. We go get them replaced. We don't make the police reports. I guess maybe I should. I mean, we are trying our best to make a building that is beautiful, and 95 square more feet of glass is going to make it more beautiful, that my employees do not want. And I'm sorry that we had to make that hard line last Thursday with Angie on the phone, but our employees will not, they've already told me, they will not they will not move over there. They won't use the building if people can see in. I understand what Mark said about foot traffic, and I'm sorry that that was misconstrued. But what Mark is talking about is that we don't have foot traffic for retail space. We have plenty of foot traffic. It's people walking to Western Mental Health, people going to Truman, people utilizing the health department, people coming from under the bridge at 71. We have lots of foot traffic. It's not retail foot traffic. It's not people in suits and ties. Like, I'm trying my best to make people understand that this corner of Troost, Mark tried his best too. This corner of Troost from 23rd to 24th is not the same Troost that's at 31st Street or 35th Street or 45th Street. It's different. I mean, I had a truck driver that was pulled out of his truck and beat, and there is a police report for that. So I'm disappointed that the police they were not able to give that. And it was probably because it was my other company and not New Horizons. It was my other company, Pink Roll Up. We have tried our best to not bring that stuff up at any of these meetings. But at some point, we have to be realistic to our employees and what they do not want. And an extra 3 to 5 feet, I don't understand, except for creating issues with employees. I don't understand the purpose of it. And I apologize if that's my ignorance to not understand that. But we have made, like I said, we went up 10%. That cost alone was $10,000. We just met a few months ago trying to save $45,000, changing interiors. Now we're adding another $10,000 back. Every time we have to go back, we just add more and more money to it. This project is just not gonna happen if we have to keep spending more and more money. It is a beautiful building. And we just want a chance to build it and not build it over 95 square feet, because that's the difference between 3 to 5 feet is 95 square feet of windows. And sorry that I'm emotional.
No, that's fine. Board members, any thoughts here?
Chris, could you bring that plan back up? I understand the structural implications with that diagonal bracing.
Yeah.
But I understand the issues with adding the 3 to 5 feet, but are there opportunities to create a continuous ribbon window at that 5-foot datum? I see on the elevations, looks like there may be some column grids, but I wasn't sure on what kind of sizing those columns were actually at and what could be done there.
Oh, I think I pulled up the wrong plan. This is actually the BZA stamped approved plan for 3801 Troost, showing 34% facade transparency.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking for the New Horizons.
The other one real quick.
And one more item to clarify, with Anna's latest presentation, it noted variance F for the parking. I assume, Stephanie, you and your team agreed to make those parking improvements?
The parking is not really, so it's our lay down yard. So it's on the very, very north end and it's gravel. So that's how it got caught in the city permitting process, that that north end of the laydown yard is gravel. The parking lot is actually asphalt. So city planning thought it would be best just to put it in with the variance on that.
So if you can see the screen, the parking lot is over here to
It's
the
like
north.
clear north is where
Yeah.
that
And
gravel
so
lot is.
everything north of the parking lot and this existing building are not part of the current plan. As Stephanie mentioned, when staff was reviewing something related to this project, they identified that additional need for a variance related to that parking lot. And that's the only issue there.
I see. Can you bring up the plan
Yeah,
instead
is
of the
this
elevation?
one that you wanted, you want the floor plan or the?
Oh, the floor plan. I see on column grid
That's it,
4
yep.
and 3. I was just curious why, if you could just do a ribbon window across there, keep that 5-foot datum height so you don't have the additional viewing into the space, but it would still increase transparency. Didn't know
So
if that
maybe-
was. Go ahead.
Maybe Courtney can talk to that, but that's where the columns are.
Correct. I know. But I was trying to see are those just steel columns, like a 4x4 tube? You can easily wrap those and do a ribbon window up until those columns, or if they are 2-foot concrete columns that would restrict any view in. That's why I was just hoping to see if the plan showed what that material was.
Courtney, I think those columns are 6x6 columns, steel columns. So I think if I'm following you, you're saying maybe add, well, actually this elevation is helpful. If you look at like column line 4, that's where the column would be. So I guess, were you suggesting adding a smaller window to the left of it? I think that the thought was to try to keep the scale of the windows the same across there. So, I mean, I guess technically you could add a really small little sliver of a window there. That would, you couldn't infill that square, that full square, because that's where the column is. Does that
Correct.
make
Yeah. I was thinking if there's just, a foot or 16 inches or something that was maybe still brick for the column, and that you could respace the mullions for the ribbon window to kind of capture more of that horizontal space without increasing the height of the window, but just adjusting the width to really get a little more transparency, but not having additional view into the space below that 5-foot datum.
I would say that's probably technically possible. It's just whether then the scale of the building kind of gets off by changing the shape of those windows. So that it might be just more of an aesthetic issue.
Yep, I can see that they mimic the window sizing right now with the current
Yeah.
brick infill. So
Yeah, so I mean, obviously there's the balance of like maintaining the proportions and aesthetic of the facade at the same time, so I agree. I mean, I think in theory you could change the shape of these or the size of these windows and infill a little bit to the left of that column. What I don't know is then it may adversely affect somewhere else. If you keep that same window size across, it may not, we'd have to just look and see how that would lay out.
or I guess for between columns 3 and 4, there's one brick infill. That one seems to be kind of isolated potentially, or if maybe that one doesn't look like it has a column behind it. If that one could be removed to still have column lines 4 and 3 have the brick behind it, but then that one kind of interstitial brick component could become another pane of glass as opposed to brick.
I think that's the wall, right?
Yeah, there's I think it's the wall of the meeting room.
Right, that's why I was hoping to see the plan. I don't know if Chris was
can
ever
you
able to
pull up
bring
the
that up.
plan view?
Right here.
I wouldn't mind seeing the plan either. Thank you.
The floor plan.
Can you guys see this floor plan? I'm trying to.
No.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry.
we're still seeing the D1 elevation.
Okay, let me go.
It's the A100 plan, Chris.
Yep. I think it just didn't scroll with me.
Oh, no, it's
Got it.
perfect. Thank you.
And that scrolled down a little bit so we can see, yeah.
So here's that 4 column right here. Is that right?
Yes. And then there's one at 3.
1 at 3.
But I think on the elevation, kind of between maybe where that 6 grid line bubble is and 3, there was another solid portion.
Jeff, is there another column right there? I can see something, but I don't have the drawings.
Yeah, I couldn't see if that was supposed to be a column line or if it was just
There is a
call out.
there is an additional column and
That's what
brace
that
there.
6 is. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I know when we went back, we literally put glass everywhere on that ribbon that there wasn't a diagonal brace, a janitor's closet, or a column.
Yes, there is a brace between, I'll say 3 and 3.5.
Okay.
And
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, and that is due to the amount of glass on the open space on the truest elevation, because it has to meet transfer the lateral loads that way.
Are the columns inside the wall, or are they?
Yes,
buried
they are.
inside the wall, or are they set just to the west?
They're inside the wall.
Okay.
So they're 6-inch steel tubes, and then there are 6-inch metal studs that encompass those. And that allowed the space to be more easily cleaned and not interrupted with columns at the interior of the building. Again, since it's not exceptionally large in terms of the overall space.
So Miss Mixdorf's comments, can we add some more glass in there? That's what I guess I'm asking.
I don't know that that's probably a Courtney question, if they can add that without any more costs to that. I don't know that. I know that when we met, we couldn't move the columns in without another cost. I know that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only way to add additional glass horizontally would be changing the proportions of the glass, and then you would honestly gain a sliver. I mean, it wouldn't be substantial. And I really do think aesthetically the sizing of the glass is better than if you were to resize it and have it be an oblong shape. But you could, I guess, in theory, gain a foot maybe of glass to the left of, well, to the south of column line 4, but it would be minimal. And I think it would create a different aesthetic that would be less desirable.
I have a question for the applicant. What is people have been talking about bigger windows, and I just so I can understand, are we talking about higher, windows more?
No, so the higher, so the Truist overlay requires that to stop the window ribbon for the transparency numbers to stop at 10 foot. And we also have that variance in there where we're requesting our ceilings to stop at 10 foot because our current building is that way. So that when you walk through, it's a continuous building when you walk through. So if we go above 10 foot, it's just going to be spandrel glass that really, I mean, it's just going to be frosted glass, or there wouldn't be anything above 10 foot because it's an air plenum. So it would just be added cost. There'd be no purpose of it except to meet the transparency. The Truist Coalition did offer a variance that they would count above 10 feet, but it's hard for me to understand how we can get that variance, but not this variance, so I didn't really feel like going above 10 feet was worth the cost of another $10,000 or $15,000 of glass that no one can even see out of because there's a ceiling there. And then going wider, we have the issue with the structure, and we did look at redoing the structure, and it cost about $200,000 more to put a moment frame in and change the structure. Okay. And then going lower is the issue where the employees do not want it to go below 5 feet.
Okay, so now I understand that the reason why you can't go higher is that the way the existing building and then addition kind of directed your design plans. Is that right? Yeah. So we want to be able to connect and have an even flow from the existing building, so it doesn't look like an addition. Okay, thank you. We did meet after the last meeting. I met with my contractor and we went through every scenario to add glass, and we added glass everywhere there was not a structural component or an issue that the employees didn't want. So we have tried really hard to get as much glass in there as we can.
And so sorry to belabor kind of what I was talking about here, but like north of grid line 3 along that angle, it looks like the glass extends for 4 feet beyond the door. But if I don't see a column within that space between the door and grid line 3, like I feel like there are some opportunities for some simple ways to add glazing that wouldn't affect structure. I know you said you kind of assessed that you could add as much as you could, but yeah, where your cursor is, I think opportunities like that to just add a little bit more. Okay, on the facade, it looked like it was kind of blank north of grid line 3.
I think there is glass there.
Okay.
Yeah, can you
Um,
show that one?
It's right here. This is.
I know, but
by the door.
okay, so I'm
There's a
looking
window,
at,
and that's a window too. That's the one of the changes that we made.
okay. So when I'm looking at the elevations, I'm looking at the old information. So thank you for
Yeah,
that.
this is the changes that we made after the last meeting. So you can see I put, it's my just rough sketches, but the W is where we put a window and the B is where we changed from metal to brick to get rid of that secondary material.
Right. So yes, Brandy, that's where, okay.
Thank
you. Glass was added.
And those 3 bricks represent where there's a column or a beam. And we're trying to keep the size of the windows affordable too, so that if one does, we've like Courtney said, we've replaced our front windows here at the north side of Troost a few times over the last few years. And so with people either shooting them out or throwing rocks through them. And so we wanted to make these windows in a size, the 5x5, to make it easier to replace those when something does happen. Instead of replacing like a 10-foot section of glass, you know, we're replacing a 5-foot section of glass.
Move your diagram up just a hair so I can see what it's, no, the other direction. There we go. Stop. Hold on. Come down just a little bit. There you go. Well, the other direction, actually. I like to see where your notes say change these from metal to PM brick.
Yeah, right here. That's how we improved our secondary material. Those were previously metal, which is a secondary material, and those were replaced with brick, and that's the B notation there.
Right. So this new diagram looks different than the picture diagram that we had earlier that we were all looking at. So yes, I understand this one.
And we have a new picture too that looks like this.
That was the exhibit that I emailed to Anna yesterday, and that was one of the first exhibits that we discussed today. Is after we took this hand notations to the coalition, we then took back to our architect, and our architect prepared revised drawings for elevations.
What are the exhibit numbers for these new exhibits?
Anna, I think it should be.
The updated plans will be exhibit 14, and then the floor plans and the elevations with the notes will be exhibit 15.
Yeah.
And if I didn't already admit those are admitted for purposes of discussion. Exhibits 14 and 15 are admitted.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? And could you take away your sharing your screen? Thank you.
Easier said than done.
Yeah, I know. It seems like I see some positive signs from the meeting from before, from our previous discussion on this discussion. So,
well, I'm ready. If there's no other comments, I'm ready to make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'm ready. Thank you, Mr. Banuki.
Given all the testimony that we've heard, I recommend that in case number 85, the applicant's request be granted as amended by exhibits 14 and 15 that were admitted today, and otherwise in accordance with staff report and the site plan.
You have a second?
Second.
Second for Mr. Gorentz. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes with this motion with these new amendments. Thank you very much for coming before us today.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
All right, let's go to the second case number 5 at 121 North Quincy Avenue. Will those of interest please raise their hand?
A Taylor Maine is being promoted. They
Thank you.
are the applicant associated with the case. A Jeremy Lillig and a Matt Kaufman are also being promoted.
Perfect. Looks like this is Jared's case. Let's go ahead and swear everyone in of those 3 new people. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on this case today?
I do.
And please say your name as you say, I do.
Taylor Maine, I do.
Jeremy Lillig, I do.
And who's the last one? Taylor. Oh, you're Taylor and Jeremy. Okay. Thank you. Jared, this is your case. Go. I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Oh.
Mr. Chair. It appears that there's also a Matt Kaufman who has just unmuted themselves.
Okay.
Yes, I swear to the telling of the truth. I actually will probably not be testifying. I am with Taylor Maine at Garcia Architecture.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, to Taylor, do you have any objections to the exhibits in this case? And I've got to get down to it. I believe it's 1 to 13. Does that sound right, Jared? Or anyone else? I'm not quite there yet. My screen is slow.
Have to pull up the staff report. Give me a second.
I'm seeing 9 exhibits, Jared.
That would make sense. Yeah. 9
Okay.
is the normal number. Yeah.
Okay, great. Exhibits 1 to 9, Taylor, do you have any objection just admitting those for today's discussion?
That's fine to admit them.
Perfect. And Jared, let's go ahead and hear what you have to say about today's case.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right. So before us, we have docket item number 2. This is case number CD SUP 2022-0005, located at 121 North Quincy Avenue. The zoning district is R-2.5 and B1-1. The applicant is seeking approval of a special use permit to allow for an additional school building that includes a gymnasium. Part of the request is also a few variances to setbacks to cite that on the property. They have met their public engagement requirements. This is the location of the subject site in relation to the rest of the city. It's within the boundaries of the Truman Plaza area plan. More specifically, the site is on St. John Avenue between North Quincy Avenue and North Denver Avenue. The existing site is outlined in yellow with the proposed expansion in blue. I believe they have acquired those properties and are expanding north. The image on the bottom of the screen is the proposed view of the building from North Quincy Avenue on the west. The top image is from the east to the rear of the building. On this image, on the lower one, you can see the proposed signage, which does conform with the zoning and development code. The applicants are also seeking variances to setback requirements on both the property line facing Quincy Avenue. I believe you can see my cursor there, as well as the northern property line here and the eastern property line here. This is the building. The staff in this case asked the applicant to provide greater landscaping to act as a buffer in consideration of those variance requests, which have been met. You can see all the additional landscaping and screening here. The applicants also provided additional landscaping of the vehicular use area here facing North Quincy Avenue in the lower right corner of the screen. Staff has reviewed the above criteria and found that the application generally meets all applicable review criteria for a special use permit. One caveat to that is that the lighting plan currently is not compliant with the zoning and development code. To address this, staff has included a condition for the plans to be corrected prior to building permit. So this is the first variance to be requested. The variance is for a 20-foot variance to the front setback requirements. A substantial change is not anticipated given the setback of the existing structures. I believe if I go back here, you can see that it generally aligns with the existing building on the subject site. A change in design would not be necessary to obviate the need for a variance. Oh, I'm not sure if someone just came to my office. I'm sorry. I'm not sure if I misspoke, but a change in design would be necessary to obviate the need for a variance. The second variance is the rear yard setback variance. That's for 18 feet. A substantial change to the character of the neighborhood is also not anticipated, and a change in design would be necessary to obviate the need for a variance in this case. And then the side setback variance is for 3 feet. A substantial change to the character of the neighborhood is not anticipated in this case either. Change in design would once again be necessary to obviate the need for a variance. The CPC voted to recommend approval with conditions of this special use permit. The conditions include, as I mentioned earlier, the correcting of the lighting plan to come into photometric compliance, as well as administratively granted alternative compliance for parking. With that, I will conclude my presentation.
Thank you, Jared. Taylor Maine, tell us why we should grant your request today.
Well, we looked at about 20 different options for locating this building on the site. The only option that wouldn't require a setback variance would be to put it basically in the middle of the existing parking lot. The site is owned by the Catholic Diocese, and our client leases a current school building from them. So taking away their parking is not an option. They were able to purchase the 2 properties north, and that's why we have located the building where it is.
Okay. Board members, there's no opposition in this case. Is that correct, Anna?
I have not received any communication from
Jared,
nearby
sorry.
property owners other than the usual phone call just asking what they were doing, but no opposition that I have received so far.
And Taylor, any opposition to the conditions imposed to complete this project from the city council?
No, we agreed with all their recommendations.
All right. Well, I don't hear any other opposition. Board members, what's your comments? If any? If not, perhaps a motion? Am I muted? No. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, in case number 5, I recommend the applicant's request be granted in accordance with the site plan and the staff report and all the recommendations therein.
Thank you, Mr. Banuki. Do I have a second to that one?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stiller. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And opposed? The chair votes with the recommendation. This passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Maine.
Thank you.
Let's go to the next case. Is everyone needing a break? We all okay for the time being? All right, hearing nothing. Let's move on. Docket number 3, case number 12, with an address of 206 East 44th Street.
Good morning, Board Member Ebbets and fellow board members. Anna, can you please promote Ryan Heiser?
He has been connected.
Okay, thank you. And I will share my.
Thank you.
And a Chris Koch is also being promoted. If there's anyone else who wishes to provide public testimony on docket item number 3, 206 East 44th Street, the time is to raise their hand is now. No one else has raised their hand.
Okay, great. So let me swear those people in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth at this hearing today? Please say yes if you so affirm, and your name.
Yes, Ryan.
Yes, David Tran.
All right, is that everyone?
Yes, Chris Koch.
Okay, great. And Andrew, are you presenting? I'm sorry, who's presenting today?
That's correct. I'm presenting today.
Okay, thank you, sir. Go ahead. And before I do that, Ryan, do you have any opposition to me admitting the exhibits for today's hearing? They are, I'm trying to get to that page number. Sorry, I've got really slow connection. Randy, are you with me on this one? Do you tell me where those exhibits are and what they are? How many?
I'm seeing
One-
9 on
Yep,
page
9.
Okay, thank you. Those 9 exhibits. And do you have a page number on that, Ms. McStore?
It's number 67 in our document.
Okay, so do you have any opposition? Go ahead, sorry.
No opposition at all.
Okay, thank you. All right, go ahead and present your case, Mr. Andrew.
All right. So before you today is docket number 3, CDSUP 2022-00012. This is a special use permit for a bed and breakfast at 206 East 44th Street. It is located generally in the Midtown Plaza area. It is directly north of the Art Institute, between McGee and Warwick. Many of you may know this home. It's a Richardsonian Romanesque style home. You probably know the doorway and archways here. The zoning does allow for bed and breakfast. The applicant did provide a site plan for staff to review. This site is located within a historic district, so they are not required to provide off-street parking. But as you can see here, the applicant has shown us how off-street parking would work and does meet the parking code if this was not in a historic district. The standards for a bed and breakfast also require the owner to reside on the property. The applicant will be residing in the existing carriage house, as you can see where my cursor is. Here is a street view of the home. And then in this view, you can see the carriage house. And I do have an exhibit number 10, if I can introduce letters of support that the applicants did obtain that are all notarized. This letter is highlighted. This is from the Summerlin Neighborhood Association. The applicant also received letters of support from the Kansas City Art Institute, from the neighbor to the north, and also from the Kemper Museum. The applicant did hold their public engagement and complied with code. As I've stated, they provided a site plan. They are following all of the standards required to operate a bed and breakfast. Staff does recommend approval with conditions, and the CPC on May 3rd, last Tuesday, did also approve this project with conditions. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, sir. Ryan, why should we grant your case today? Why should we approve this?
Thank you very much for letting us kind of be here. I'm Ryan, and this is my partner, David, who's also the owner of the property with me. And so it will be brief but short. So
Maybe just a brief background on who we are and what our story is. I am a pharmacist by trade, and Ryan is a family and couples counselor. And we reside at 206 East 44th Street. We've lived here in the neighborhood for about 4 years now. Earlier this year in January, I was diagnosed with a type of cancer. And so that's kind of prompted kind of a desire for a change in lifestyle. So something that would be more amenable to my health or maintaining my health. And something that also allows us to maintain our home in a financially attainable way. So that's kind of the motivation, for us turning our primary residence into a bed and breakfast. We really love the neighborhood, and we think that there are a lot of amenities that are very unique to this area, and we'd like to kind of provide visitors to Kansas City the opportunity to, you know, see something local and see something historic.
It's
Thank
been,
you.
It's been really a nice time meeting with our neighbors and kind of talking to them, and we've gathered a lot of neighborhood support in support of the project as well. So.
And Ryan and David, don't you have a few B&Bs not too far away from you?
Yeah, yes.
We
have on the property we have an Airbnb that will be decommissioned, and then this will become just a bed and breakfast instead.
All right, perfect. And do you have any problem with the conditions that have been set forth by the CPC that are highlighted in this report today?
No.
No.
Okay. Good. Board members, any comments? And do we have any opposition? I didn't hear any to begin with, but is there any opposition? Nope.
No one is raising their hand in Zoom.
Right. I think, well, go ahead, board members. You have any questions? If not, perhaps a motion? Hola.
Chair?
Yes, Mr. Stiller.
I would recommend in case number 12 that the board grant the variance as requested in accordance with staff report and site plan.
And of course, the conditions is highlighted in the staff reports. Yes?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Mixdorf. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And opposed? Chair votes with this motion. It passes. Thank you very much for presenting before us, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Let's continue down the road. If anyone needs a break, speak up. Otherwise, let's go to case docket number 4, case number 157 with the street address of 130 East Linwood. Would the applicant please raise their hand? And I see a quorum on this.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, and to interrupt, I wanted to bring that up. There is a required quorum for this case, which cannot be met because Ms. Otto is no longer serving on the board. So we will have to reestablish this quorum. Sarah can get into the methodology of doing that. I did inform you, Mark Ebbets, of this change. However, in my error, I did fail to include the other board members on that email to watch said recording.
Okay.
So we can proceed forward as needed.
So I'm not sure the other board members of Stiller, excuse me, or Mixdorf may have seen the video or remember the case from when it was first heard back in February 8. Do you guys recall this one? Were you here on that?
I'm going to take a look.
I don't recall either.
So according to Anna and the staff report, board members Mixdorf and Stiller were not on that quorum. So in order to establish a quorum, we need to either provide a transcript or we could consider providing a link to the recording for those board members to watch, but we wouldn't be able to hear the case
Here today. Right. So we've got to move this one to June, to either May 28 if we have a meeting that day. It looks like we might. And then maybe Tom and Randy could look at that link that Anna could send over to you in the next day or two. Is that acceptable?
I'll have time.
Okay. Thank you.
May 24th, continue to May 24th.
Yeah, I keep saying the wrong day. So let's continue this case number 157, docket number 4 to the May 24th meeting. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll move.
Second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Stiller. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And chair votes with that motion, and it's moved to May 24th, 2022. Docket number 5, we've already continued. Docket number 6 is our next case, case number 27, with the street address of 561 Harrison Street. Will the applicant please raise their hand to be promoted? Anybody coming?
There he is. Corey Henry is being promoted. He is the applicant.
Perfect.
No one else has raised their hand.
Okay, thank you. Corey, or excuse me, Mr. Henry, will you raise your right hand and solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
It is, yes, sir.
Thank you. And Jared, and before I do that, there's a list of exhibits, and it takes me a while to get to them. Give me a second here. Usually they're 1 to 9. Is that right, Jared?
That's correct.
Thank you. Exhibits 1 to 9 that affect this case. Do you mind if we admit those for our consideration today? That's the comment to you, Mr. Henry.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Yes, sir.
No problem. Okay, great. Jared, thank you. Please present the case.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Give me one moment to share my screen. All right, before us, we have docket item number 6. This is case number CD-BZA 2022-00027, located at 561 Harrison Street, zoning district R-1.5. The applicant is seeking approval of a variance to the density requirements of zoning district R-1.5. So this is the location of the subject site. It's within the greater downtown area plan, specifically in the Columbus Park area of the city. More specifically, the site is on Harrison Street between Independence Avenue and Pacific Street. The existing site is outlined in yellow. A little bit of case history. The lot contains enough area to support 4 dwelling units. This CLNU here, CAVLN-2835, was approved in 2002 to allow for 5 total dwelling units, 3 in the multiplex building on the site and 2 in the duplex. There's 2 buildings on the subject site. There's also an open code case currently, ZDC-2021-0272. This is a development compliance violation due to an additional dwelling unit being in the subject site. The site is currently configured to have 4 units in the multiplex. Staff recognizes that this property has a somewhat complicated timeline. As such, I thought it would be helpful to outline the request in context of what was previously approved. So as I just mentioned, this is the site plan for the property, by the way. The property contains enough area to contain 4 dwelling units by code and per the 2002 CLNU. The building to the left is approved to have 3, is approved as a 3-unit multiplex, and the building to the right is a duplex. Today, the building to the left is configured to have 4 units, 1 more than is allowed by the CLNU, which is the subject of a development compliance case. The applicant is requesting a variance to allow for 2 more units than what is allowed for the CLNU. So for a total of 7 units, which would encompass the current dwelling unit that is in violation, as well as an additional basement unit. If this request is approved, 5 units would be allowed in the building on the left, along with the existing 2 in the duplex on the right. Additionally, the applicant's presentation includes one mention of requesting that the building on the right be granted an additional unit. It's unclear to staff if that is a current request or if it will be a future request of the applicant. In any case, just to cover it, it would then contain 8 units on the subject site. These are the Missouri case factors for the subject site. So the applicant is requesting a 40% increase in residential units allowed on the subject property. That's from 5 units to 7 units. That number is based on the number of units already granted to the property via a CLNU. To put the request in the context of the zoning district in the neighborhood, the proposed number of units represents a 75% increase over what would be allowed without the CLNU. A substantial change to the character of the neighborhood could occur given the increase in density and potential parking demands. I neglected to mention earlier that there is already a parking variance on the subject site, or not variance, but included within the CLNU. So they're already parking on street for this. Additional units could not be constructed without the variance. Also, it is worth noting that the density currently approved on the site via the CLNU has to comply with section 88-610 of the Zoning and Development Code. This limits the ability to change the configuration of the lot and includes that the non-conforming status could be lost, in which case any new development on the site would be required to realign with the standards of the Zoning and Development Code. The applicant's request today is for a variance, which would run with the land, meaning that the density increase would be in perpetuity. With that, I will conclude my presentation.
Okay, Mr. Henry, this is a substantial increase to what we normally do here. Why should we grant this request?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Corey Henry. I'm the attorney that represents Mark Hastings. He's the owner of the property. Unfortunately, he was unable to attend today. My most sincere apologies. He normally would have been here, but when we continued, he had already had a pre-existing meeting, and so we couldn't move around that. If this time, can I share my screen? Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Okay. I'll be as brief as I can. I don't want to take too much of your time. Okay, so this is the elevation of the building. You'll note that right now there's a unit. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but right under where it says Kansas City, Missouri 64106, there's a unit. Then to the right, there's another unit. If you were to go up the stairs, you'll have units above those two as well. That's how my client purchased the property back in 2020. And the prior owner was the one that had actually gone through and did the CLNU request. And at some point it had changed from a fourplex to a threeplex. But regardless, right now the top two units are unoccupied due to the violation of the code. And so I want to make sure that I do state that on the record, that we do not have those occupied, so as to kind of get through this request before we just decide what we're going to do next. So we have, I'm going to give, and Mr. Clements did a good job of the history, and I won't be overly duplicative. It's been in existence since before the early 50s, and it indicates that entire time it's been used as an apartment building in some capacity. It indicates that it has served as a 4-unit complex, and which actually is pulled from the code administration inspection report in 2002, which was an accompanying to that CLNU that was granted. The original application stated that the CLNU was for a 4-unit complex with another 2-unit structure on the same lot in the rear. However, and no one's really sure why, it was changed from a 3-unit or 4-unit to a 3-unit at that time. So part of what we wanted to point out, because this is we recognize that there is an existing CLNU here, and that there is a substantial increase in the density that we are requesting. But it's been noted that this was a fourplex in the past. There are actually 6 gas meters and 6 mailboxes, 4 for the front unit and 2 in the rear. So again, consistent with its development pattern as it's always been situated, we feel that it is something that we want to continue. And would not be overly burdensome as we're not doing any new construction. It is the opinion of my client, and the city records do appear that to kind of substantiate that this has been a 4-unit complex. Whether or not that's in compliance with the CLNU, I can't speak to the former owner. However, my client is keeping it in compliance in that no one is occupying the upstairs at this point. My client purchased the building, as I stated, in 2020 under information and belief that it was a 4-unit apartment complex with the ability to add at least 1 unit in the basement that's unfinished for a total of 5. Of course, that's not the fault of the city. I just kind of wanted to provide some background as to what my client's impression was when he was purchasing the property. On June 8th, 2021, my client was issued a notice of violation of the city code, specifically sections 88610, 88110, table 88110-1, and 88615. My client retained my services that time, and I worked with Mr. Duddy on a regular basis to understand exactly how the process went. And so he was instrumental in helping me understand and getting to this point, and also granted us an extension of time to continue to figure this out. And so we had our pre-application consultation, and the variance was explained, and this variance process was explained, and what would go into it and what is needed to be shown. So that is the review criterion. You all as board members know this far better than I do. But as we piece through this, we need to prove that the strict application of one or more standards would result in unnecessary hardships and practical difficulties. And so it is our opinion and belief that the strict application of the development code results in my client's inability to use the structures as they were originally constructed, and that is as a 4-unit complex at a minimum. And moreover, the hardships are not generally applicable to other multifamily structures. I would like to point to the fact that there was a new multifamily unit development approved in the Columbus Park area, immediately adjacent, actually shares the alleyway with my client, where I believe there's going to be 20 units that will be developed as well. So that allowance of those multifamily units would be consistent with my client, and they would actually share the same alleyway. I think it's coming off of Independence. Second, that the variance is generally consistent with the relevant purposes and intents of the code. Generally speaking, we understand that the code is intended to do several things, one of which is protect health, safety, and welfare, as well as provide proper development throughout the city. And while we understand that we would be exceeding some of the density requirements in the R1.5 district, we also believe that because we're not doing any new construction or actually changing the footprint of the building whatsoever, all of the upgrades would be interior. It is not going to have a massive impact on the code, and should be and would remain consistent with the code as it's drafted. Also, granting of the variance would result in substantial justice done. And that considers both the public benefit as well as the practical difficulties facing my client. Columbus Park is developing in a really wonderful way. The city's done an awesome job down there, and more housing is necessary and is desirable. And my client wants to be able to provide that. He has already renovated all of the units on site. And if this was granted, we'll rent out the upstairs as well. But the intent additionally, as Mr. Clements mentioned, is at the same time, since we're here, I wanted to all at once ask for the ability to also improve the basement, which would result in a 5th unit downstairs. So the factors to be considered by you as a board, whether the undue hardship is a result of actions of my client, of the owner of the property. The action of my client are an attempt to continue the use of the structure as it always existed. The addition of 1 unit only improves the property. And so while it could be argued, I suppose, and I'm arguing against myself here, that my client is doing that, he at a minimum is just simply desiring to continue the 4-unit use that has always existed by evidence of utility meters, mailboxes, etc. Additionally, whether the granting the requested zoning variance will result in advantages or special privileges. While it may appear that way outwardly, that there may be advantages, in this instance, it doesn't apply. Again, there was a development that was just approved in Columbus Park, immediately adjacent to my client's property, that would be a very similar use. The minimum request for us is to be able to have up to 5 units. The building itself, again, designed for 4, has a full basement. It runs the length of the unit, and the intent would be to put a studio apartment down there and have the utility compartments, closets, things like that, all housed down there for easier access and safety. And then the last consideration is it'll substantially interfere or injure the rights of others whose property would be affected. No one will be allowed, or no one will be affected by the variances, as we're not constructing new buildings. We're not constructing anything new. We would be doing all interior remodel to allow for a little bit of a higher density. Again, the 4 units currently exist and existed prior to my client's purchase of the building. And it wasn't until after his purchase that we were cited and realized that there was this issue specifically related to the CLNU. So again, that's obviously not the city's fault or concern per se, but that is the situation facing my client. And real quick, so that I can paint a little bit better picture, as Mr. Clements mentioned, this is what I've been referring to as the front building facing Harrison Street. And so it's got the 4 units that you would just kind of divide this. You have 1 unit here, and then 1 above on those. And then the intent would be, if allowed, to renovate the basement to allow for 1 more unit underneath that would be accessed from the rear here where the parking lot is. Right now, the additional structure on the lot that was granted by the CLNU is for 2 stories. As Mr. Clemens mentioned, at one point we had considered trying to add a 3rd unit to that, but we understand that there's already a substantial deviation being requested. And so we didn't want to overburden the board at this time, and would be very happy with the granting of the 2 units in the front building in addition to the 3 that is already existing. And I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time, sir.
Thank you for that. And so Jared, help me out on this. The unit right now is okay for six units. Is that correct with the CLNU and the other 2?
It is approved. It's approved for 5.
5. And in his proposal, he's asking for 2 more units. Is that correct?
That is correct. So 7 total.
But there are 6 gas meters, 6 mailboxes. The whole building seems like it's geared up for 6 people or 6 units. Yes.
It appears that what he was showing was from the initial CLNU. I'm guessing that that was how the lot was configured when they initially applied for the CLNU, and then at some point through the process negotiated it down to 3.
Okay.
And it appears that in the meantime, between the approval of the CLNU and when Mr. Henry's client bought the property in 2020, the additional unit was added back to the property.
Right. Seems like a lot of units, Mr. Henry. I'm just one board member, but the building was designed for 6, and then it went down for one purpose or another, and came back up to 6. You were cited on that one, and now you want to increase it to 7. Do you have any other photos or things you want to share with us?
I can, Mr. Chairman, just 1 second. I do think I have, and I apologize, I should have included this in my initial presentation, but I think my client had sent me a couple of interior shots. If you can give me 1 second here. And again, I also want to emphasize that we absolutely understand and appreciate kind of where it's at, that the units is kind of, the history is complicated, to say the least. And so
right.
We want to make sure that we are compliant with that. It's just, I apologize, sir.
Sure.
I won't take any more of your time.
While I was looking for that, Jared, or did we have any idea about why the city wanted to negotiate this down to 3 units instead of 4?
I do not know why, and I don't know if it was the city wanting to or the applicants in that case. Like I said, there's no evidence as to why it shifted down. It just that it did.
Okay.
And
that I'm aware of, I should say. And also Mr. Duddy is here as well, the investigator on the case. He might be more familiar with the previous CLNU. I'm not sure.
Mr. Duddy, do you want to speak to this case today? Thank you.
Yes, sir. From my understanding, when the CLN was applied for, it was the owner of the property that reduced it, that made the request to reduce it from 4 to 3. Also, it is 2 separate structures that are on the property. It's not one structure that was originally constructed as a 6-unit building.
Mm-hmm. All right.
That is correct. And I cannot find the images I thought I had, Mr. Chairman. I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
But what I might add is, again, and I'll share this one more time. I know the board has seen it, but I'll just kind of one more time try to point out. So what we have is the frontage. This is that front building that Mr. Duddy was referring to.
Right.
That has, you can kind of see the door here and the door here, and then those two up there that have a shared access walkway, which is what we are requesting. And then there'd be a fifth in the basement. And that building in the rear has also always existed and it will remain a duplex.
Are there current egress windows in the basement? Or
I'm
how
sorry?
are you, the egress windows in the basement?
So there are two egress windows, but we recognize they would have to be widened to be in compliance with the code. Additionally, Mr. Duddy had pointed out too, when he had come out for the first investigation, that there's going to be some stairs that need to be modified. So we recognize that at this point, this would just be for the allowance of the fifth unit. And then we would have to go through the city's processes to ensure safety and all those things. And if for some reason we couldn't get it, then we wouldn't pursue that. But I didn't want to have to come before the board twice and try to give you guys the same presentation twice. So there's a lot of modifications interior wise that we would have to do in the basement, and would be willing to do so without any request for variance.
The question I had was, do you know which of the 4 units were combined to make 1 unit so that it was only 3?
As I understand it, sir, it was the upstairs unit was combined to make a larger 2-bedroom, not a studio. And then the 2 below have always remained studio.
What's the current square footage of these units, or the intended square footage if you're breaking that one large one back into 2?
So it is, it would be, I apologize, ma'am. Got to get that up here. It is of each, so the individual units are going to be approximately and I can get an exact number for the board, approximately 760 square feet per unit.
And would the basement be a similar square footage?
It would probably be slightly larger, only because we have the whole footprint to work with. And so the design that we've currently discussed is that you would come into a hallway in the lower living or in the lower basement area, and you can go off to the left, which would actually serve as utility closets and, you know, hot water heaters and all of those things. And then to the right would be the apartment, and probably 850 square feet, give or take.
Mr. I have a question for Mr. Duddy. A couple. Trying to look for some evidence that supports, you know, what we're hearing. And when you did your walkthrough of the buildings, what did you find? Did you find evidence that there were indeed, it was originally built for 4 units? The one in the back, same question there. Does the old CLNU file contain anything like original building permits?
The original, the multiplex in the front was originally 4 units.
Okay.
And it was taken down to 3. The unit in the back was a duplex.
Okay. Did you go to the basement of the front building, the 4-plex?
Yes, I did.
You know, a lot of those old buildings used to have a very, very small sort of caretaker's quarters down there. Did you see any evidence that there was ever any living or caretaker space down there?
No, sir. It currently does not meet the IBC or IRC habitable living space criteria.
Okay. And then switching, Mr. Henry, is there any opportunity for some on-site parking?
Thank you for that question, sir. Yes, currently we have both. There's some street parking available. I believe there's 2 spaces in front, and I could be wrong on that, and Mr. Duddy or Mr. Clements may be able to correct me. But more, our parking primarily actually is in the rear of the front building. Again, I'll go ahead and share my screen so I can just refer to the site plan if that's okay.
Yes, I just want to focus on the off-street parking, not the on-street
yes, sir.
parking, because that's shared by everyone.
Yes, sir. So here's the off-street parking right here. It's currently gravel, and we are aware that that is also not consistent with the code. And so we actually have talked about paving that and taking that to code, because that's something we need to take care of, because we recognize that parking is a major concern. And as to how many vehicles I can get in there right now, I candidly cannot get that answer for you. I don't have it right now, but it's something that if we, as we move forward, we would obviously provide to the city as we develop the lot in the part from a parking perspective.
But I guess, and this maybe goes to staff too, if the board were to approve a 5th unit, then without regard, that would be new. Would we not need either one off-street parking space to be shown in a site plan that we understand, or a variance for that?
That would be, they would be required to show an additional additional parking space. Usually that would come at the time of building permit. But they could also show it on the site plan if that would be helpful to you.
Yeah, I guess what I was heading in this direction is it might be easier for me, as one board member, and maybe for other board members, to look at your full request if we understood that it wouldn't have any impact on the on-street parking. You've mentioned a couple of times that this is kind of the way these buildings were originally designed and constructed, and that was the original density. I think we understand that. But it might be, since you kind of have what looks like some opportunities for some off-street parking, to formalize that and really quantify the lack of an impact in terms of street parking, and those items would be helpful.
Definitely. Thank you, sir.
And Mr. Henry, I'm just one board member again, but converting that basement unit to make it a total, four units in front and then a basement unit. I don't feel good about the basement unit right now myself.
Okay.
The way you pointed out on your diagram, 2 in the lower level, 2 in the upper level, and the 2 in the back, that'd make it about what it was a while ago back in Columbus Park days, a 6-unit building. To Mr. Stiller's request for the parking issue, perhaps for that 4th unit that you have 2-bedroom upstairs, converting to singles, perhaps that would be efficient for me to hear. But the 5th unit, again, I'm just one board member, but I'm not in favor of the 5th unit in that building. Thank you.
And so, Mr. Chair, if I may, at this time, would it be appropriate for me to ask for a continuance to do some more legwork and provide this board with some more information, particularly as it relates to offsite parking?
I think that would be great.
Okay. Then I would formally request a continuance, probably to the June.
On June 14, sure.
Yes, sir.
That'd be great. And we've obviously you have a quorum for them for all these people that have heard it so far, and we'll hear these new updates at that time. So board members, can I get a motion to continue this to the June 14 agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stiller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The chair votes with that motion, and we'll see you June 14, Mr. Henry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I feel like I need to give everyone a 5-minute break, but we only got 45 minutes left, so I'm not sure. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, keep going. All right, let's roll. We're skipping a case here. Now we're going to docket number 8.1 with the street address of 2826 Summit. Will the people please raise their hand to be promoted?
Okay, Chris Coach is being promoted, as well as a Dale Scott. He is the applicant.
Okay. See any other hands there coming up? Nope.
Those are the
Okay.
only two attendees that have, oh, I apologize. Richard Hernandez has also raised his hand.
I remember him from before, I think. Okay.
He's connected.
Thank you. So Chris, Dale, and Richard, please raise your right hands for the oath. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you will give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please affirm yes, and your name, please.
Yes, Richard
And your-
Hernandez.
Good. Keep going.
Yes, Chris Koch.
Yes,
And-
Dale Scott.
Perfect. And I think those are the three. Dale, looks like you're the leader of the pack today. So I'm asking you if you have any objections to the exhibits in this case. And I'm trying to scroll down. They're usually 1 to 9. And Naja, is that what you're seeing?
That sounds correct, yes. Sir.
Okay. Do you have any objection for those to admit for your hearing today?
I do not.
Thank you. Those will be admitted. And now it's Naja's turn to tell us about the case. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, good morning still, everyone. Today we'll be presenting docket item number 8.1 through 8.3. This is CD BZA 2022 32, 33, and 34.
And Naja, stand by just for a second. I only called the one case a .1, so I will call the other two cases right now. Then you can proceed with your testimony. So
Yes, sir.
the chair is also calling docket 8.2 with the address of 2828 Summit, and then docket number 8.3 with an address of 2830 Summit. And Dale Scott's represented on all those, and he's admitted that he's okay with the exhibits in each case. Naja, thank you very much. Please continue.
Just to reiterate, I'm Najma Muhammad. Locations that we addressing is 2826, 2828, and 2830 Summit Street. These all lie within R6 zoning district. The applicant is seeking approval of variances to the lot and building standards, proposing to reestablish the formerly platted lot lines to bring two existing homes currently on one lot into compliance and establish a third lot. This is the subject site located in the greater downtown area plan, more specifically off of Summit Street, right behind Southwest Trafficway. This is an aerial view of the site. As you can see, this is currently one lot containing two homes, which is considered illegal by our code, and they are unable to pull any permits or any improving or maintenance work on this property until this is rectified and brought into compliance. This is what the applicant is proposing to reestablish those platted lot lines between the two existing homes and the third lot line to make this a lot that they do not intend to build on at this time. The other homes, again, already exist, and they share a common stairway, which I believe the applicant has obtained an access easement for, although it is currently owned by the same owners. For clarity, I'll go back to these two homes were formerly connected by a brick wall. So if someone were to look this up on Google or something like that and have complaints about that, this has been rectified. The applicant was able to have their neighbor take down the brick wall, which appeared to be for aesthetic purposes. So this no longer impacts our decision-making on that home in that lot. Variance A for case number 32 is to the side yard setback requirements. The applicant is requesting a variance of up to 0.76 feet from the requirement. This will not create a substantial change as the home already exists. And in order to change that, they would simply have to move the home, which is not feasible for the applicant or the city at this time. Again, the next variance for 32 is variance B for the front yard setback. The applicant is requesting 24 feet from the requirement as the home currently sits about 6 feet from the property line. And to obviate from this variance, the applicant would have to move the structure, which is not feasible at this time. Lastly, variance C, or second to last variance C, is for the minimum lot width, which is 25 feet. The applicant is requesting a variance of 25 feet from the current requirement to allow for the 25-foot lot that is currently existing or would exist after the minor subdivision should these variances be approved. And lastly,
Okay.
variance D is to the minimum lot area, which the applicant is requesting a variance of 277,025 square feet from the requirement. Because this is an R6 zone district, the required area for any lot under R6 is 6,000 square feet per unit. These same variances apply for CDBZA 33. To the side yard setback, they are requesting a variance of 1.68 feet from the requirement. To the front yard, another variance of 24 feet from the requirement. To the minimum lot width of 25 feet, they're requesting to have a 25-foot lot. And to the minimum lot area, again, that 2,725 square feet from the requirement. For the final lot, under case number 34, they're requesting that minimum lot width of 25 feet and a minimum lot area of 2,725 square feet. This is an overview of the variances for case number 32 that I just discussed in more detail. For variance A, the required side yard setback is 2.5 feet. They are proposing a side yard setback of 1.74 feet with a variance in amount of 0.76 feet. For the front yard setback, the requirement max required is 30 feet. They are proposing a 6-foot front yard setback with a variance in amount of 24 feet. For the minimum lot width, it is 50 feet. They are proposing a minimum lot width of 25 feet, requesting a variance in the amount of 25 feet. For the minimum lot area, the required is 6,000 square feet. As I mentioned before, the proposed is 2,725 square feet. The variance in the amount of 3,275 square feet. Similarly, for case number 33, pardon the error at the top of the screen there, the side yard setback is requesting a variance in the amount of 0.84 feet, front yard 24 feet, minimum lot width of 25 feet, and a variance for the minimum lot area of 3,275 square feet. For 34, case number 34, they're requesting a minimum lot width of 25 feet and a minimum lot area of 3,000 or a variance in the amount of 3,275 square feet. That concludes my staff report.
Thank you, Najma.
Najma?
Yes, thank you, Najma. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Scott, why don't you tell us why we should grant your request in these cases today?
Yes, I'm assisting the homeowners in the remodel of the homes that they purchased about a year ago, maybe 8 months. And we presented the plans for the interior remodel of the homes. There's no plan to change the footprint of either of the two homes. And our application for remodeling permit was refused until we established these variances to allow us to improve the properties that have been sitting vacant for quite a long time. So our plan is to improve the properties as they were built on the lots and the lot lines that would have been conforming in the time period that they were built.
Okay. So you're basically just separating these lots that have been existing all along.
That's correct.
Okay.
Do we know when the lots were combined?
I'm not aware of that.
The property history survey was not, I did not pull any information on when they were combined. And just for record, we are not proposing any variances to setbacks to the third lot. As was mentioned, we're not proposing any structures to be built at this time, but through this process, we figured it's easiest to just separate the original 3 lots as they're were originally configured. So it's just a lot size variance at this time for the third.
Okay.
And to be clear, you're proposing to place a property line between the two existing structures directly where the original lot line was located.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I know we had two other people in the audience, Mr. Hernandez, I believe, and someone else. I'm sorry.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can.
I'd like to know what their plans are for the two houses. What are they going to do with the houses? They're going to rent, Airbnb, sell. What are they going to do with the houses?
I can't speak for the owners at this time. It's my understanding that they're going to be renting the homes.
And when they replat the lines, do you know where they're going to be?
I'm not sure I follow the question.
Well, when they did a survey on the property lines, how
Yes.
do they intersect with the neighbors?
I can pull that
you insist?
presentation back up. Yes, sir. One moment, please.
Najma, I believe the amended version we sent you second has all the setbacks with labels between each house and the individual property lines. The first version did not.
I'll just pull it up from Compass KC. Please bear with me. In reference to the question raised, since it was placed before the board, short-term rentals are allowed in an R6 zone district. Give me a moment while I pull up the amended survey.
If Najma and board members, if the amended survey was not listed as an exhibit, let's go ahead and.
It's already a part of the staff report.
Oh, it's already attached.
Correct.
I wanted to see them. I never did. I never could get copies of anything like that. It affects the neighbors if they intersect somewhere. And you mentioned that the neighbor already took down something, some part of a wall.
That was existing illegally. We're not sure why, but the neighbor had a wall extending from their home connecting to the property owner's home for one of the lots in question. And in order for the owners of this property to receive any variances of connecting structures across two different parcels are illegal, as well as two primary structures on one lot without proper entitlement processes.
That's my biggest concern is they start crossing lines and you force people who cannot afford to do more than what they've already done. What's going to happen? The lady next door cannot afford to do a bunch of work because they want to change their lines. Them lines have been there for 100 years and they can't even get it right. The surveyors can't get them correct. They're close, but they're not exact.
The line to the north would not change from what is currently there. The newly established lines that the applicant is proposing for their minor subdivision are the two lines in the center here. This line does not move and this line does not move. They're reestablishing lot lines in the center of the lot to allow for this home to be on a singular lot and this home to be on a singular lot.
And what is the gain? What is the gain of doing this? I'd like to know.
It would bring their homes into compliance. At this time, it is illegal for them unless they go through a development plan to have two homes on one lot. We don't know why this was consolidated or how, but as of right now, in order for them to do any maintenance on their home, to bring their home into compliance in any way, to get permits for anything, they have to bring these two homes into legal status, which in this case is putting them on two individual legally platted lots. I will say that at some point, the platted lines that they are suggesting was approved by City Council. We don't know when. That could have been back in the 90s or 80s, but they were at some point approved lines. They are just requesting a reestablishment of them.
So Najma, fair to say other than a variance, the only way or being allowed to drop that property line in there and separate these houses on separate lots, the only way to relieve that would be to tear one of the houses down.
Correct.
All right. Also, could we look at an aerial just to understand
the parcel viewer,
the density? Because it looks like it would just, that lot puts it back consistent with the other houses and lots in the neighborhood.
yes, sir. Are you able to still see my screen for parcel viewer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. This is how the lots currently stand, with the exception of the home to the direct north and the home to the direct south. All the other homes on this block face seem to have an approximately 25-foot lot width.
Right.
And parking is an issue too. If you look at you can see it on the screen, there's no garage. So you're gonna add 4, 6 cars?
So they would not be changing the density at this time. The variance is simply to reestablish lot lines so that the existing homes can have their own lot. They are not requesting to create any more units than what currently exist. So it's,
For now.
I'm going to show you the.
For now, but they own
correct.
the lot, they own the other lot. They could build in the future. And
Possibly.
and you look at the parking right there, you can see there's not enough parking.
I know.
So the parcel viewers lines are slightly off from what the survey has presented to us that I had on the screen before, but the pink lines are the previously platted lot lines. So at some point, these lines did exist and were approved by council. What the applicant is proposing is to reestablish these lines so that they can bring their existing homes into compliance. That is what we are discussing for their variance today. While they could potentially build on this lot in the future, that would be addressed at that time. If there are oppositions to them reestablishing this lot, that those questions or those concerns can be addressed for this lot. But for these two lots, it is simply to bring the existing structures into compliance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I remember, Mr. Chairman, a case, maybe not on the same street, but somewhere in the neighborhood that we had a few years ago. I just don't remember, how that came out and what effect that might be. It had to do with, there was a dispute about combining these narrow lots. Maybe Sarah can jog my memory, or if it's irrelevant, then that's cool too.
You may be thinking of the Vandenboom case where a permit was issued to build on a lot, and the decision to grant the permit was appealed by a neighbor, and the BZA upheld that appeal. The argument was that those two lots had been, one of the lots that they were going to build on had been consolidated with 2 other lots, because we have a consolidation provision in the code which says that if 2 or more non-conforming lots are owned by the same owner, they become consolidated for purposes of complying with lot and building standards. You upheld that appeal. Your decision was upheld at the trial court. It was also upheld at the Court of Appeals. So it sounds like this might be similar in the sense that I'm assuming, Najma, that the lots are all owned by the same owner and are therefore considered consolidated, right?
That's true. However, per permits, they need to go through a minor subdivision process in order for them to have permits granted to them. There are other situations with the same circumstance in the city, but their lot lines do not deem them consolidated on our end. They are still separate lots, and we see them as such. But since this lot is consolidated, from city staff standards, permits did not issue any permits to them because they were illegal technically for having 2 primary structures on one lot. I understand the confusion because it the code does restrict that with that provision, which is why we wanted to repeal it. But in this case, they have to go through a minor subdivision process, which they can only go through if these variances are granted.
Yeah, I guess the only distinction here is these lots not only are deemed combined, but they're actually shown on parcel viewer as being.
That's being combined.
Within
Right, so
the-
there are other areas of the city where lots would be deemed combined, but by our parcel viewer are not, so they could be sold individually still in that sense. Is that clear?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it just appears to me that an additional step must have been taken at some point to formally combine these lots, right? Because they're not simply deemed combined at this point. It's
Correct.
one.
And that could have been done at the county for whatever reason, but I did not go through the records to determine at what point these lots were combined and why. However, if that is something that the board is interested in knowing, we can work with the applicant to try to pull that information.
Anyone else have any other comments on this case? Mr. Hernandez, were your questions answered?
Somewhat. I'm still not sure of the motive other than splitting the lots up. What do you do with it after that? I'm president of a neighborhood association, Westside Neighborhood Association. I'm opposed to it till we find out more information.
Sure.
Yes. Mr. Go.
Lawrence.
Yeah.
They couldn't sell right now. They couldn't sell one house right now until we get this approved, right? I mean, right now they could not legally sell just one of the houses.
Correct.
Is that right?
That is, the homes are on one singularly owned plot of land. And it is illegal. So if they were to sell it, the problem would continue to just perpetuate itself from seller to seller. They could do that, but that, creates issues like we saw earlier, where we'll have to go through the same process of trying to get these lots split to bring them into compliance with our current zoning and development code.
I understand it then. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'm going to jump in real quick to clarify something that was addressed a few comments ago. The planning and development staff, we do not maintain the parcel layer in Parcel Viewer on our online GIS system. We pull that information from the county. Like Nashim mentioned, for whatever reason, these lots were combined at some point, probably for tax purposes from the county side, but that is our only speculation at this time for why the lot lines are reflected in that manner.
Okay, I think I understand this is a little bit different situation than that other case. It sounds to me like we have to do this, and there's other owner would have to go through to do anything else on the lot. I understand, on the lots.
Correct. Anything at all. So this could be a maintenance or energy permit, any type of permitting that will be required. Our department would automatically be flagged because of the current state of the land.
Okay, thank you.
Board members, if you're ready, I will need 3 different motions on each case if and when you're ready.
Okay, sure, 3 different motions. Yeah, in case number 32, I recommend that the application be granted in accordance with the site plan and the staff report.
I have a motion. Who's second? Tom? Okay, Tom Grins is second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And opposed? Chair votes with that motion. Continue on.
In case number 33, I move that the applicant's request be granted in accordance with the site plan and the staff report.
Second on somebody? Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The chair votes with the motion. The motion passes. And continue on.
In case number 34, I move that the applicant's request be granted in accordance with the site plan and the staff report.
Thank you, Tony. Second? Somebody? Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Chair votes with the motion. That motion passes as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Okay. I'm looking at the clock. Yeah. Let's continue on to docket number 11, case number 41, with an address of 4041 Main Street, Kansas City.
Okay, we have a Andrew Myler for this
St. Paul's.
case. Correct. Mark O'Hara should also be on. But I'm not seeing him. I am promoted another name. It just says Sivis, S-I-V-I-S. You can identify yourself.
Hi,
and
Anna.
change-
Hi, Anna. It's Mark O'Hara. That's the name it gave me when I applied. I could probably change that. My apologies.
And no one else has raised their hand.
Okay, great. To those on this case, I'm going to swear you in. Please raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on this case today? Please say yes if you agree and your name. Go
Yes,
ahead.
Mark O'Hara.
Thank you.
Yes, Andrew Myler.
Perfect. And let's see, who's lead?
I'll be giving this
Mark,
presentation.
yeah, so, but I want to get the exhibits in first. So.
My apologies.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all good. Mr. O'Hara, do you have any objections to us admitting the exhibits? They are usually 1 to 9 as associated in your staff report today.
There's 10 on this case.
Okay, excuse me, 10 today. Mr. O'Hara?
Yeah, if that was the information that we submitted, then I grant
Yeah.
approval for you guys to submit on our behalf. present on our behalf.
Perfect. And Anya, thank you. And Anya, you're presenting today, so please let us hear what you have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, my computer's acting weird. Okay, can you see my screen? Is it the PowerPoint? Or is it Parcel Viewer?
We see the PowerPoint.
You see the PowerPoint,
I see
great.
the PowerPoint.
So docket item number 11 focuses on 4041 Main Street. The sign is has split zoning on it, so it is B3-2 and R2.5. And the applicant is seeking approval of a height variance to a fence and the material requirements for said fence within the Main Street Overlay District. So the subject site is in the Midtown portion of Kansas City. The subject site is highlighted in yellow. It is quite a big parcel along Main Street in between 40th Street and 41st Street. With some other landmarks. The Starbucks is directly south of this site. And then the Westport Entertainment District is a few blocks to the west. This is an image of the subject site and the fence that currently exists right now. So they are proposing to build a new fence. They're reconstructing the playground area. They're tearing down the existing fence and building a new fence. And they would like to rebuild portions of that fence to be similar to what they have right now. So highlighted in the dark green color is a rough guesstimation of where the existing fence is. And then the light green line shows the new proposed fence. So they're proposing a 10-foot chain link fence that kind of wraps around said playground, a little bit fronting Main Street and 41st Street. And then with the tail end of the fence reaching towards the east, towards Walnut Street, is going to be a 6-foot ornamental fence. So per the Main Street Overlay District, no fence can be over 6 feet in height. So there's the small portions that are 10 feet that they are proposing that they would like. So that requires a variance in the amount of 4 feet. And then additionally, No fence within 20 feet of the Main Street right-of-way can be of the materials listed on the screen: chain link, vinyl, plastic, or wood. And they are proposing to rebuild the fence to be chain link. So they requires a complete obviation from that portion of the Main Street overlay district. And that concludes my staff presentation.
Thank you. Who's, I'm assuming Mr. O'Hara is presenting today. And what would you like, why should we approve your case?
We are asking for this variance to the BZA for the use of the playground. The proposed design has a kind of a sports field, a very small sports field for kids on the eastern edge, and the height of the fence will, one, protect and provide safety of balls not being kicked out of the playground, at least to some degree. You know, obviously a kid could kick it over the 10-foot fence, but that additional 4 feet is something that is existing on the property. And we would like to be able to propose keeping that there for the safety of not only the kids internal to the fence, but everybody outside of that fence. And then where we're transitioning from the existing, that proposed sports field area on the east side, we are conforming with the current standards of the overlay district to go down to the decorative 6-foot fence.
Okay. Did I lose you?
Andrew, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add in addition to that.
No, just to reinforce that the purpose of it, and like y'all showed in the picture, it would just return to what it is now. And the reason that it was like that originally was just to keep balls from going out in the street. We're working on them and getting better at shooting goals, but that might take longer than the fence process. But it really is a safety concern that our faculty have expressed, and I think also the distance from the street and kind of how it looks, and there will be landscaping all around there that really beautifies that corner. And if you look at the overall design, there's a ton of landscaping and things here that we're investing in and spending almost $1 million on this project to really enhance the look of not only our playground, but the area in the community.
Mr. Myler or Mr. O'Hara, would that be that black chain link that's there existing today, kind of like that same color?
It would pretty much be exactly what is there now.
Okay.
Correct.
And you're really just reducing the amount of chain link that your current site has, since you're having an ornamental on the south side of the site.
Correct. And the way we're rotating the playground right now, the field is more in the middle where the equipment's going to be for this new design. So it's actually really important that it's at the Main Street corner. And that's one of the reasons we're able to reduce the overall chain, as we're changing the purpose of this and putting an outdoor classroom in there. So we don't really need it for the safety in terms of kicking balls over. Hopefully they won't throw their books over the fence.
As a parent of a former SPEDS child, I understand the need for the playground. Board members, I think it's pretty straightforward. Do you have any other questions or comments? If not,
Just one.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Stiller.
Yes, I was curious as to the choice. Why did you choose the chain link there on the northern area, as opposed to matching what you're doing down toward the south and the corner?
Part of it is we're going to try to keep the fence and the post and things that we have now. And we've also had this for a long time and it works well. And I also think, in terms of, so some of it's cost related. And then I think, again, we feel like, I'm looking at it right now outside my window. You kind of really can't even tell it's there when you're kind of driving down Main Street. So I think overall, the reasoning was that it's a cost issue and that we know that works well. And to have an ornamental fence there, I'm not sure it actually enhances the look on that corner anyway, again, because of the elevation and with the landscaping that we're going to do. But that's the reason.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from anybody? Perhaps a motion, if you're so inclined. You.
This is docket 11, case number 41, correct?
Yes, yes, it is docket 41.
And then I would move that the board grant the request in accordance with staff report and site plan.
Thank you, Mr. Stiller. Do I have a second to Tom's?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Grants. All those in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes with the motion and the motion is granted. Thank you very much for your application and speech today. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we could squeeze in one more case number 42, if you guys are okay with that. So let's call docket number 42 with an address of 4737 Holly Street. Will the applicant please raise their hand to be admitted to the meeting?
Cheryl has raised her hand. I am promoting the applicant. They have been connected. No one else has raised their hand.
Okay. Give me a second here while I get to that case, excuse me, or get to that part. Okay. Cheryl, I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand. And who's there with you? Is that Stephen with you today?
Yep.
So we'll both have you raise your right hands to take the oath. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your case today before this board?
I do. Cheryl Tulipana.
I do. Steve Tulipana. Perfect. All right. Jared is presenting on this case today, but before I do that, to Cheryl and Stephen, we have a list of exhibits associated with your case today. They're usually numbered 1 to 9. And is that okay if we admit those to hear your case today? They're part of your staff report.
Yes, please.
Okay, those are admitted. And Jared, I think you're presenting today, so you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, before us, we have docket item number 12. This is case number CDBZA-2022-00042, located at 4737 Holly Street. Applicant in this case is seeking approval of a variance to the front yard setback requirement and a variance to the rear yard setback requirements. The location of the subject site in relation to the rest of the city is within the boundaries of the Midtown Plaza area plan. You can see it there on your screen. More specifically, the property is on Holly Street between West 47th Street and West 48th Street. So this is the site plan for the property. On the left there to the west, you can see the bay window, which is the subject of the variance that brought the Tulipanas to us today. They did an addition to their home that included this bay window and have been seeking as-built permits for those additions. And it was found during that as-built permitting process that the bay window encroaches into the front yard setback. Along with that, the deck and garage below on the right of the screen, which would be to the east, is also encroaching in the rear property line variance. So while we were getting that front yard variance, we thought we would bring the whole property into compliance. So for the front yard setback, the variance is 8 inches in relation to the requirement. A substantial change to the character of the neighborhood is not anticipated. The difficulty could be obviated by a change in design, though the encroachment is existing. For the rear yard setback, the variance is for 5 feet and 8 inches. A substantial change to the character of the neighborhood is also not anticipated, given that it's existing. The change could not be obviated without a change in design. The direct deck and garage portion of the home, as I mentioned, is existing and is not part of the as-built permits being requested. With that, I will conclude my presentation.
Great. Who's going to speak today on your case? David, Cheryl,
It'll
Stephen?
be me. Thank you. I'll make this quick. I know we're trying to get out of here. We're Stephen Cheryl Tulipana. We've owned our home at 4737 Holly Street for 12 years. We are staying here. We're not flipping this home. We're not planning to rent this home out. We're local business owners. Steve's on the board of the Community Improvement District for Broadway. We're very invested in Midtown and in our West Plaza neighborhood. One of the things that we love about West Plaza is the eclectic nature of the homes. There's a lot of really interesting architectural design. And what has happened in the last few years is there's been kind of an acceleration of some of the older homes being torn down and some really large footprint homes going on the plots. And I know there's one right around the corner from us that has received a variance. I think their front yard is about 8 feet and is supposed to be more like 20 feet like 25 feet like ours. So the design of the bay window, it is actually already built, and it's really kind of a unique structure in the fact that it's not just part of the exterior design of the home. We were adding a very small office to the front of the house underneath the existing roof line on our porch. And the way the bay window is designed is it allows a desk to inset so that we can use this small space more functionally as a home office, which it was intended. So yeah, our ask is very small. The 8 inches is not gonna make any difference to the size of our front yard or to the green space that we have. And we've actually invested over $100,000 in home improvements this last year. We've gotten new siding, a new roof, we did new concrete, we replaced the city sidewalk. So we've really done a lot of home improvements here. And yeah, that concludes our case.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Do we have any pictures of the home? I didn't see any in the
I
presentation.
do, you know, let me, if I can share my screen, I do have a PowerPoint I'd like to share.
And there are some in the staff report, Mark.
I must have missed them when I was trying to find the pages. I'll find it here. Thank you, Randy.
Okay, I can also share what I have.
Sure.
That would be easier.
Just a few pics is fine to give us an idea.
We have a before and after here.
Okay, perfect.
I can't see anything on my screen. Can you see that?
Uh-huh.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah. So you can see this was a build-in of the front porch there, and you know, that hedgerow of bushes is really kind of where the front yard starts, and it's still there. The problem with the bay window is that it should have been 4 feet off the ground to be compliant with the zoning, and that was a detail that we missed, admittedly, but it has been constructed. It looks beautiful. I mean, we're so happy with the results from the home, and we're just hopeful that we don't have to tear that down because it's such a small variance that we're requesting.
Right. Okay. Well, board members, what's your thoughts? Have any questions for the applicants? Do I hear any motions coming from you guys? Ms. Mixdorf?
Mr. Chairman, in case number, what are we on?
42.
In case number 42, I recommend and move that the applicant's request be granted in accordance with the site plan and the staff report.
I have a motion from Tony Banuki. Do I have a second from somebody?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Mixdorf, it sounded like. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The chair votes with that motion. Your application has been granted. Good luck in your rehab projects, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm at 10:04 out in California, so I'm at a stopping point if you guys are. And we will get together here on May 24th, 9 a.m. to finish up these cases. Anna, do we have any more cases that will be added to this docket other than what I see here?
No, just the remainder items on this May 10th docket will be heard on May 24th. No new cases for May 24th.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you guys for coming out this morning, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Wait, don't leave. Do not leave. Wait, are we going to do these other items at the end of the docket on May 24th?
Correct. On May 24th, we'll also have a presentation from Jared about the 2021 BZA annual report. We will vote for a chair and a vice chair at that May meeting as well.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, everyone. Again, we're signing off. I appreciate it. Have a great